What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
9BA. Chapter 186 I am your father. Hearing Tom's words, Shiryu remembered that this place was one of the enclosed areas designated by Dylan. And it was reserved for Ayu. Jin, who was standing opposite Shiryu, was slightly puzzled. But this doubt was instantly suppressed by him. Because the man opposite him had already caused him great pressure. Shiryu slowly inhaled the surrounding black mist into his body, and the lines on his body became more and more strange. Fire disaster. Ember. The fireworks on his body are very unique, even more peculiar than Margot's flame of regeneration. Shiryu smiled at the cut on Jin's left arm. But not invincible. Jin's gaze also fell silent, the flames of the Lunaria tribe. Can't completely resist his damage. He remembered some old legends. Those rebels, using the means of the Lunaria tribe, defeated the ancient compatriots of the god race, who originally ruled the world. It's so ugly to die. Quinn. Jin lifted the mask from his face, and the flames on his body slowly flowed from his body and wrapped around his weapon. If defense is useless, it just depends on who kills who first. Bang. The two weapons collided and sparks burst. Black mist and fireworks intertwined in the air, and waves of impact exploded centered on the two of them. Call. A purple flame fell beside Tom. He looked at Shiryu and Jin, who were not far away, and glanced at the corpses piled up on the long street. Where's Yamato? Tom raised his chin towards the general's mansion. Tahir nodded. Yamato is not on the execution list, but if she tries to attack someone from G5, it will also be instantly erased by Tahir or Tom. Seeing more and more enemies, Jin's heart sank completely. Jin let out a long sigh after looking up at Kaido in the sky. The flame on the long knife is better, Shiryu grinned, and the black mist climbed up at the same speed. Fire Dragon Emperor. Big hot. The flames with completely different breaths instantly swallowed the voices of the two. Tom's brow furrowed even tighter. Never mind. Tahir shook his head, letting Ain and Shiryu face off against Jin and Quinn was for them to hone themselves. Although the current Jin and Quinn are most likely no longer their opponents. Capital of Flowers. The degree of damage is still within the acceptable range. Two flames intertwined and rose up into the sky, Jin's black wings and Shiryu's fleshy wings opened at the same time. After a collision, the two bounced back. It's almost over. Dylan looked at Kaido across the way. Kaido didn't answer him, he was also looking down. Ah Bell. As if sensing Kaido's gaze, Jin looked up again at the giant dragon above the sky and smiled. Brother Kaido, the dawn of the world, we cannot witness it ourselves. Then his body started to burn, and the threatening heat wave deformed the air around him. Guardian Fire Dragon Emperor. Seeing the red dragon Shiryu rushing towards him like magma, he held the thunderstorm across his chest. Yellow Spring Abbey. The explosion in the sky above the capital of flowers attracted everyone's attention. One after another heat waves swept across the four directions. Tom and others standing not far below stood against the wind. It's over. Next. Shiryu, standing in midair, was thoughtful. He felt it just now, but it wasn't obvious. He knew that Tahir had communicated with the spirit within him, but the spirit within himself. Advertisement. In the general's mansion, Kinemon, Kanjuro, Momosuke, and Kikunojo gathered together. Hiyori. Yes, brother. Is it that big? Momosuke stared blankly at the younger sister who was originally younger than him. After Momonosuke was still looking at Hiyori, Kinemon suddenly thought of another thing. By the way, where is Ninja? We need her strength. I've already contacted her, and she said she'll be here soon. Kazuki Hiyori looked at the retainer in front of him who hadn't changed at all from 20 years ago. The ability of a mother is amazing. Lord Kinemon. A voice came from the window, and a fat ninja jumped into the general's room. Nin, the current situation, we must have enough evidence to convince the public to convince them of His Highness Momonosuke's identity. Shinobu glanced at Momonosuke who was already sitting cross-legged on the cushion and nodded understandingly. Your Majesty Momonosuke, I will ripen your body until you are 28 years old, and at that time, the people of Wano-kuni will regard you as their lord as long as they see your appearance. My lord. Through the window just now, they had seen the scene of Jin's defeat of Fire Calamity, and at this moment they had full confidence in their hearts. Kaka. The sliding door was pushed open, and a figure wearing a wing decoration and a big Tengu mask appeared in the doorway. Not enough. The sudden appearance made everyone in the room nervous. Who? The others hadn't reacted yet, but Kanjuro and Kinemon were staring at the man's waist. Tien Yu Zan and Yan Mo. The royal palace's weapon. Before everyone could ask questions, Kazuki took off the decoration on the back and the mask on his face. It's me. Before Momosuke and Kazuki Hiyori could react, Kinemon's body shook. Sho Sukiyaki-sama. Ah. Kazuki Sukiyaki looked around, his heart sank, and then he sighed. Take it. Odin's weapon. He unfastened the two swords at his waist and handed them to Momosuke. This is the symbol of Kazuki Odin. Kazuki Odin. An exclamation sounded outside the door. Then a woman in white clothes rushed into the room directly. Where? Moan. Kinemon and Kikunojo unsheathed their weapons instantly. That woman, she has the same horns as Kaido on her head. He's Kaido's daughter, exclaimed Kazuki Hiyori next to her. It's my son. Do not. What? Yamato waved his hand. For so many years, I have been living as Kazuki Odin. Hello, your name is Momonosuke, right? From today, I am your father. Of course, isn't it right for a father to help his son? Without waiting for other people to object, Kinemon took the lead and said, okay. Although I don't know why you call yourself Godin, but since the Kazuki family has returned, I hope you don't do this in the future. The twin big brothers turned and left with a mocking smile. Hey, don't be afraid, I'm not an enemy. Kawamatsu, who was escorted to the capital of flowers, jumped into the moat the moment he entered the city gate and disappeared. I am a man. After glancing at Kazuki Sukiyaki with an unclear expression next to him, Kinemon asked in a low voice, is that true? You. Momosuke first took a look at the woman's appearance and her big breasts, and then said angrily, my father is a man who is indomitable, how can he be a woman? Don't worry about it present. Yamato thumped his chest twice and said, after the battle between those two guys is over, I will escort you to become a general, Tauzi. Yamato slapped the door and said loudly, the whole beast's pirates call me, Master Yamato. I hate the whole thing, but I'm a man, Kazuki Odin. And. Before Momonosuke finished speaking, Kinemon raised his hand and interrupted him. Yamato had a bitter look on his face, but then nodded. Anyway, take back Wano-kuni first. Seeing this strange woman who rushed in out of nowhere with a happy face, everyone stepped back a few steps vigilantly. Yamato paused on the ground with his mace. I am the son of that B*********** D Kaido, and my name is Yamato. But I have another name. Chapter 187. Slaying the Dragon. What are you waiting for? Jin's defeat finally caused waves in Kaido's heart. This brother who has been with him for several years has always believed that he is Joey Boye. Believe that you will bring dawn to the world. But Kaido's confidence was completely shattered after Linlin summoned him about the Derice Rosa fight. He knew it wasn't him. But he also knew Joey Boye was even more unlikely to be Marine. Because this guy in front of him is also known for being cruel and ruthless. And Odin's Joey Boye is a man who brings laughter and joy. Now that the beast's pirates have been destroyed, the man in front of him is still unwilling to do anything. The guy who can beat the rocks. Kaido grinned, not knowing who he was laughing at. It's almost. The actors are already in place. Kaido, you are the actor, and the audience. As Kaido's huge body hovering in the air slowly moved, the whole of Wano-kuni fell into silence. The result? What will happen? Will the shadow that has hung over Wano-kuni for more than 2 decades really lift? Dragon. Looking at the body of the opposite dragon, Dylan smiled, and if you want to make a scene. With Dylan's thought, the sky and the ground roared at the same time. All Wano-kuni citizens felt a tingling sensation on their skin. Dark clouds hang over the entire Wano-kuni sky. Afterwards, heart-pounding roars came from the dark clouds, and black thunder began to slowly rise from the ground. What is this? It's his power. Kazuki Sukiyaki looked at the red thunder hanging from the sky and the black thunder emerging from the ground and said in a deep voice, a power almost like a god. Originally, those who watched the live broadcast through the light painting did not have such an intuitive feeling, but at this moment, a sense of unease rose in everyone's heart. This level of power seems to be stronger and more terrifying than Kaido. Kaido, opposite Dylan, was also a little puzzled. According to Linlin's news, this guy's fighting style is actually very simple and efficient. Why would he engage in such flashy things? You know shit. As if seeing through Kaido's mind, Dylan laughed loudly, Open Gundam. It's a man's romance. Red thunder and black thunder intertwined, and a moment later, a thunder titan nearly 1,000 meters high appeared in the air. The dragon-shaped Kaido also looks a little small in front of the thunder titan. The dragon opened its mouth wide, and a ball of red light condensed in the dragon's mouth. Hot interest. The heat-like hell magma instantly shot towards Thunder Titan. The red-black Thunder Titan composed of countless thunder lights blocked the rushing aura of destruction just by raising its hand lightly. The dragon frowned. So easy. Bad wind big tornado. The windblade tornado, which was several times more exaggerated than a year ago, rose from the ground, and the tornado rose from the ground and directly connected to the thunderclouds in the sky. Seeing Thunder Titan being wrapped by that huge tornado, everyone's heart sank. Still so strong. Only Tom and Tahir were unmoved. Woo, woo. A pair of big hands protruded from the berserk tornado blade, and then pulled to both sides. Ooh, is Logia's awakening so powerful? The Cyan Dragon watched the Thunder Titan coming out of the tornado and laughed, and then hot magma began to emerge from the dragon's body. Playing with fire. Watch out for bedwetting. The Thunder Titan stepped in front of Kaido, stretched out his huge left hand, and grabbed the dragon's body. ZZ. When the thunder and magma converged, Kaido felt the huge grip from his body and his pupils shrank suddenly. No, impossible. Materialized. Advertisement. Aren't the ones just now the embodiment of elements? Just as Kaido was shocked, Thunder Titan's right hand began to burst into dazzling light. A thunder-long knife hundreds of meters long appeared in Titan's hand. The giant dragon twisted its body frantically, but it was still difficult to break free from Thunder Titan's palm. Kaido grinned, and the magma on his body turned from red to bright yellow. The dragon's head is also wrapped around the conqueror's haki that makes the air sizzle. The Thunder Titan raised his long knife, his body like a god and his weapon like punishment from heaven deeply shocked the people of Wano-kuni. Heaven. God. It's a god. It's the gods who came to save us. It's not a Kazuki samurai. It's a god. Hearing voices from all directions, Kaido asked Dylan regardless of his body still being held, is this your purpose? You want to be Wano Kuni's god. The layout is bigger. Maybe what I want to create is this world, this piece of starry sky, and the god of this universe. Hey, the giant dragon grinned, and said no more. His hot body curled up suddenly, and then he broke free from the shackles of Thunder Titan's left hand in an instant with the help of elasticity, and bumped towards Thunder Titan's head. Fire Dragon Torch Rising Dragon Flame 8 trigrams. Thunder Titan blocked the dragon's head with his left hand, and the Thunder Sword on his right hand went straight into the dragon's body. Hold head high. The terrifying roar pierced the sky. Endless thunder instantly tore apart the dragon's body. The entire ground of Wano Kuni began to tremble. The sea area of hundreds of kilometers around was instantly covered by thunder. With a turn of Thunder's sword, the dragon's roar stopped abruptly. Amidst Wano Kuni's terrified expression, the Thunder Titan held the dragon's corpse and glanced around. Rumble. The dragon fell to the ground, and the Thunder Titan disappeared. Amidst the dust and smoke all over the sky, the people of Flower City carefully observed the situation outside through the gaps. Those slashing sounds outside have disappeared. Master Kaido. No Kaido. He seems to be defeated too. After more than 10 minutes passed, some of them began to walk out the door cautiously. As familiar figures appeared in their field of vision, more and more people walked out of their homes and gathered towards the long street. Rocks, ruins, corpses, bloodline. When they came to Center Avenue, everyone was stunned by the dead bodies of beasts pirates, members all over the floor. Kaido. Where is Kaido's body? People began to look for the figure of that person in the dust and smoke. That monster-like man, is he really dead? If he really died. That Wano Kuni. Someone subconsciously looked in the direction of the general's mansion. Who will lead Wano Kuni? Kurozumi Orochi, or the Lord God, just now, or Kazuki's house. Someone. 9 figures slowly walked out from the dust and smoke in the direction of the general's mansion towards Zongshin Avenue. Heaven. Skyfall 9 shadows. A long-haired figure emerged from the dust and smoke. 20 years have passed since the death of my father, Kazuki Oden. My father, could it be? The Republic of China in the capital of flowers thought of that man 20 years ago. It's hard for everyone to survive such a long and painful time. The long-haired figure moved forward again. The name given to me by my father means, invincible under heaven. I am determined to lead this country and make this place a Taoyuan township. From now on, I will be Momosuke, come to lead Wano Kuni. Before the people of Wano Kuni and the residents of the Flower City had time to cheer, a lazy voice sounded from all directions. Ho, invincible under heaven. Chapter 188 Calling Dad. Invincible. The moment the voice sounded, the people of Wano Kuni were stunned for a moment, and then froze. Correct. That God seems to be still in the capital of flowers. The dust and smoke dissipated slowly. Momosuke, who had turned into a youth, was also stunned. Kinemon told him that all he had to do was bluff, and all the populace would welcome his return with joy. But, Your Excellency Dark Dragon, Kazuki Sukiyaki stepped out of the dust and looked at Dylan with a gloomy face. This is Wano Kuni after all, the Kazuki family has ruled this place for thousands of years. Sukiyaki. Dylan looked at him with a half-smile. I originally thought you would become smarter after more than a year in G5, but I didn't expect you to still have a disgusting stench all over your body. You. Kazuki Sukiyaki tried his best to straighten his body and looked at the surrounding crowd. Below is Kazuki Oden's father, the former General Kazuki Sukiyaki. The people of Wano Kuni. Your Orthodox General is back. The people in Flower City looked at each other in blank dismay, and no one dared to speak. Many people have seen this war with their own eyes, although they cannot confirm whether the man in black is Lord Tianjin. But, from other people's attitudes. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, Kaido. I didn't kill him. What? Everyone was shocked, and some even knelt down and begged for mercy. Guy Master Kaido, it's great that you are safe. Behind Dylan, Marine spread out, and Kaido, whose stomach was still bleeding, let out a strange laugh. Cool. Dylan laughed. Evil or not, you have protected them for more than 20 years. Hole. A loud shout sounded, and a woman with a mace jumped out of the dust and smoke. Peach is the general of Wano Kuni. You be D, what do you want? Dylan's eyes turned cold. Standing behind Yamato, the barbarian area trembled all over his body. Hiss. Snapped. Dylan dodges to Yamato and slaps him down the face. Dylan slapped Yamato, who was in the shape of a beast, and flew him away. PFF'd. Before Yamato landed, Dylan reappeared next to her and flew towards Kaido grabbing his horn. Boom. Dylan threw Yamato in front of Kaido and made a big hole. What is this you? Dylan pulled out Shira and put it on her neck. The terrifying aura lingering around Shira Dao instantly released the suppression of Yamato's transformation. Quote. Kaido looked puzzled at Yamato, who was held by Dylan with a knife. Although he is not dead, but in fact his vitality is almost exhausted. It wasn't the vitality of the phantom beast that was supporting him, it was the man's ability that was hanging his life. Shira slowly cut through Yamato's skin, but no blood flowed out, and the part cut by Shira began to wither rapidly. What is he to you? The fear of death filled Yamato's heart instantly. He is my father. Advertisement. Then who are you? The wound that could not heal kept leaking out the breath of life. Shira seemed to like this breath very much, and the black blade became more and more bewitching. I am Yamato. Isn't Yamato afraid of death? Of course she was afraid. If he really had the courage to fear death like a golden lion, he would have found a way to blow up his arms and go to sea a long time ago. You know he's your father. You're still yelling at him all day long. Although this B*********** D deserves to die. But you are the only one in this world who can't kill him. You said you were a man, and he made all the beasts pirates call you, Master Yamato. You said you were Kazuki Oden, and he made you Wano Kuni's General. You destroy Ghost Island everywhere, and he never hits you hard. Who gave you your food and drink, and who gave you your life? Oh, right. Dylan leaned over and looked at Yamato. I've seen your handcuffs 4 years ago. It's just seastone handcuffs. There's no bomb inside. Kaido never thought of killing you. As long as you have the courage, you can break free at any time. You can't go out to sea because you don't have the courage to live to death. You really deserve the name of a piece of trash like Kazuki Oden. Yamato looked at Kaido incredulously. She thought of Quinn's weird smile when he uncuffed her before coming to Flower City. It turns out. Kaido, leaning against the wall, laughed to himself. He stopped looking at Yamato. Yamato looked up at Dylan. So what? He took away my freedom, my life. Stubborn. Since that's the case, Dylan grabs Yamato by the horn and throws her back to Momosuke. Kaido can't stop your life and your choices now, come on. I've always been sorry because I haven't found a way to go back to 20 years ago and cut Kazuki Oden alive with my own hands, today. I'll kill you imposter first, and Kazuki Oden's old father and his 2 sons and daughters. Boundless killing intent emerged from Dylan's body, and Shira's blade let out a scream of excitement. The air became a little sticky as the killing intent spread. After swallowing his saliva, Kazuki tried his best to suppress the fear in his heart and said in a low voice, "What will Ayu think if you do this? Is that what you're after? Kazuki, do you think Lousy doesn't know? You want to use Ayu to coerce Lousy? Does it match?" Swish. Dylan appeared in front of Kazuki Sukiyaki, and after the next breath Dylan carried him back to the distance. After looking back, Dylan magnetically picked up a piece of iron and hung the Kazuki Sukiyaki on it. Shiryu. Dylan turned around, eyes glowing red. Shiryu shuddered slightly when he saw the red light. Cut him, 1,000 knives, no more, no less, and you can't die before the cut is over. To understanding, Shiryu drew out the thunderstorm and walked up to Kazuki Sukiyaki. Enjoy it. The most wonderful art of impel down. What? The thin slices of meat fell to the ground, and the Kazuki Sukiyaki roared instantly. The samurai on the opposite side tightened their palms. Actually, really, Kaido. Dylan turned his head and looked at Kaido by the wall. You bombed Oden for an hour, and it took almost an hour for me to kill the whole family. Who do you think they are more afraid of? Yamato. Give her a good time. Watching Kazuki howling like a beast under the mist of Ashura, Kaido lowered his head. Okay, tell her to come over, give you a kowtow, and call her father. I'll give her a knife. Chapter 189, Patricide. Shiryu's Ashura mist seems to have some kind of special effect. Although he has shaved off Kazuki Sukiyaki's arms, Kazuki Sukiyaki still maintains a clear mind. Amidst the wailing and screaming of Kazuki, the people in the capital of flowers also showed a look of horror, and some people couldn't help but knelt down. Kinemon frowned. If this continues, the reputation of the Kazuki family will be lost. There was a sound of hurried footsteps from the gate of the city, and then a fat body jumped up from the air and drew a knife to Shiryu. Shiryu didn't look up. He was still carefully and conscientiously cutting the thin slices of meat from the Kazuki Sukiyaki. The figure had just jumped into the sky, and Ain, who was standing beside Tom, spun around and held Chushui to block the slash. Bang! A figure much taller than Ain's, coupled with the top-down advantage, did not make Ain's body shaken at all. Ashura boy bounced off the impact, and he looked at Kinemon in the distance full of anger. 20 years of waiting. Is this the result? Kinemon was speechless. They were just retainers, to put it harshly, they were just servants. It is impossible to know what exactly was recorded in Oden's diary back then. It is also unknown who the destined man will be to save the country. Of course Mrs. Shi knew about it, but maybe it was an emergency at that time, and Mrs. Shi didn't say it clearly. Why don't you fight? Ashura boy shouted angrily. Without the support of strength, why can't you show the integrity of a samurai in such a desperate situation? These 20 years, the Ashura boy's body trembled slightly. He recalled what he had seen and heard in the past 20 years, and he remembered the ruins and muddy rivers in Wano Kuni. Those people who just smirked because they were too hungry to eat the smile fruit. Those people who died in the mines and were randomly discarded on the side of the road like wild dogs. He also firmly believed in Oden's last words and the prophecy of Tianyushi. He believed that the Kazuki samurai would eventually be able to overthrow the tyrannical rule of Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido. When the giant dragon lifted into the sky, he rushed to the capital of flowers immediately. But he saw, none of the warriors participated in the war, and when the war ended, they ran out immediately, trying to use the name of orthodoxy to fight for the results. Stupid. That mysterious man defeated Kaido so easily. They actually tried to blackmail him with righteousness. When the Kazuki Sukiyaki was hung on the iron rack, they were afraid of each other's strength and dared not do it. So, what kind of warrior? This kind of samurai is not appropriate. Dylan turned and looked at the boy Ashura who looked like a beast. Kill him and give him a good time. Yes, who was standing opposite the Ashura boy, heard Dylan's words and answered coldly, and then swung the autumn water in his hand. Ashura boy sighed as he looked at the people who were still guarding Momosuke in the distance. This life. It was useless. Condemnation one line of sky. Laugh. The boy Ashura's head flew high, and there was unwillingness and resentment in his eyes. Kanamon and the others standing opposite Dylan were startled at first, and then slowly gathered their formation to surround Momonosuke in the middle. Ho, ho, ho. It was already difficult for Kazuki to make a complete sound from Sukiyaki's mouth. He looked at the retainer on the opposite side. Advertisement. It seems to be praying for them. Pray that they will find a chance to give themselves a good time. Under Shiryu's rapid cutting, only the leg bone remained in his right leg. As this, samurai, slap, Dylan walked towards the opposite side while applauding. The world is invincible. Come on, my head is here. If the world is invincible, come and get it. The whole of Wano-kuni fell into silence. Although Kaido is not dead, judging from the scene from the light painting, it seems that he is almost dead, but that man in black is scarier than Kaido. Dylan glanced contemptuously at the opposite side and then looked at Yamato. Kaido gave you a chance to be relieved. Although he is an idiot, the promise I gave him is valid. Dylan narrowed his eyes and looked at Yamato. Go over now, give him a kowtow, and call him father. I will send you father and daughter on the road. Otherwise. Dylan raised his hand and pointed at the Kazuki Sukiyaki behind him with his thumb. I promise you are 10 times more painful than him. Don't even think about it. Yamato instantly turned into a beast shape, and endless cold air came out of her mouth. She stared at Dylan, with her front paws on the ground. A devil like you will never understand Yudian, Kaido, he is not worthy of being my father. Call, Kaka. 2 shattering sounds sounded, and Yamato, who had just transformed into a beast, was smashed into the ground by Dylan. Click. A pair of extremely high-purity seastone handcuffs handcuffed Yamato. Dylan held Yamato with one hand and turned to look at Tahir. Kazuki Hiyori, burnt. Hahei Temple. Before the fat ninja had time to warn, Kazuki Hiyori's body burst into a raging purple flame. Then she disappeared without a sound. 20 years ago, Kaido played a game with you. Now I will play a game with you too. Dylan drew a pile of ironware from a neighboring house to form a second shelf. The hearts of the warriors tightened. This game, I am afraid it is even more terrifying than the punishment of boiling in a cauldron. Momosuke, you come here now, kill this fake, Kazuki Oden, and I can spare one of the samurai. Dylan glanced at the samurai on the opposite side and shook his head again. Kanamon is not included. Time is limited, only 1 minute. Start counting now. Don't forget Goten's will, stand up. Take up arms and resist. Below. Kaido in the distance lowered his head and closed his eyes, seemingly dead. With such a power gap, they still lost to Kaido even though there was royal palace back then. Don't you like Kazuki Oden? Don't you want to be Kazuki Oden? Then I will give you a death method that is 10,000 times more humiliating than him. Killed by your son, personally. Why this person was not like this 4 years ago? Peach, resist. Samurai, resist. I'm just a child. The samurai all looked at Momosuke. Despite having his hands bound, Yamato struggled hard. Yamato, who was bound on the iron frame, showed an incredulous look in his eyes. Then tears and snot flowed down the face of the young man who looked almost exactly like Oden. Ka. Dylan turned his head and looked at her lightly. I gave you a chance 4 years ago, and I gave you 2 chances just now, 1 to change, 1 to live, and 1 to die with dignity. Since you are given a chance and you don't want it, then you're going to die my way. Ka. Momosuke mechanically turned his head to look left and right. There are still 30 seconds. 20 years later, Kaido, who has been called the strongest creature, lost to the man in front of him in a disastrous manner. Chapter 190 Killing the Werewolf. They have no strength to resist. Nor did he have the courage to resist. They don't know what they are waiting for. Miracle, will someone come to save them? 20 seconds. Your Highness, that woman. She is Kaido's heir. Kill her. Kanamon shouted loudly. But, Your Highness. Kanamon was very anxious, although that person said just now that he couldn't let him go, but. Moan. Kanamon pulled out the Yamahazuken hanging from Momosuke's waist and handed it to Momosuke. Go. Momosuke walked towards Yamato tremblingly holding Tien Yu Yujin tremblingly. Look. Seeing Momonosuke walking towards them holding Tien Yu Yujin, Dylan leaned into Yamato's ear and whispered. This is the samurai, this is the descendant of Kazuki Oden, this is yours. Son. Ah. Yamato's face was ashes. Not like this. This is not the case in the diary. Warriors, even in the face of desperation, shouldn't they have to rise up and resist and fight to the death? The integrity of the samurai. Shouldn't we sing elegy together and go to hell together? In the next life, read less of other people's diaries, serious people don't keep diaries. After saying this, Dylan leaned into her ear and whispered something. Dylan was standing next to Yamato, and Momosuke dragged Tien Yu to them, and he didn't even have the courage to look at Dylan. 10. Momosuke looked up at Yamato with snot all over his face, at the woman who appeared out of nowhere and claimed to be Kazuki Oden, his father. 9. He could feel that this woman had no malice towards him, and she was very protective of herself, but 8. He glanced back at the samurai behind him. There was a look of encouragement in their eyes. 7. Sorry. 6. You are the son of Kaido. 5. Us. 4. Us. 3. We are. 2. We are the enemy. 1. Who? Tien Yu cut into Yamato's abdomen, and Yamato's face showed no sadness, joy, or resentment. She glanced back at Dylan. The last words Dylan said to her just now were, "If he dares to swing a knife at me, I will let you go." After Momosuke staggered back to the samurai camp, Dylan grinned. Not bad. Then, it's time to fulfill the promise. Kanjuro, it's you. Dylan pointed at Kurozumi Kanjuro and said with a smile, you can live, come here now. Although he didn't understand why, Kanjuro walked to the opposite side nervously. No one in the Marine queue paid any attention to him. It is good. Dylan looked at the warriors on the opposite side and smiled. Now the game is entering the second stage. This game is called Werewolf Killing. The background of the story is like this. There is a member of the Kurozumi family, among the retainers. 20 years ago, Kazuki Oden failed to raid Onijima. It was the information he gave. 20 years ago, the return of the samurai after the year is also the news he passed on. It was he who gave Raizo's life card to Orochi, and now. You have 1 minute to find this undercover. If you find it, another samurai can live. Of course, except for Kinemon. Before Dylan could speak, the warriors unconsciously took 2 steps back, staring at their former companions suspiciously. Advertisement. Kawamatsu, Shinobu, Kikunojo, Kinemon. Kanjuro standing behind Dylan looked blank. But the 5 people on the opposite side naturally ignored him. Momosuke looked at the 4 retainers around him in horror. Who? Don't be deceived by him. Kinemon yelled, but there was also a trace of doubt in his heart. Their actions back then, and the fact that they were intercepted immediately after traveling through time and space. There must be a problem. Is he Song? No, he was raised by the palace. Xiaoju. It's unlikely. He was also raised by Yudian. Shinobi. She used to be Fu Lu Shou's subordinate. Is her? Kinemon looked at Eren in horror and anger. She was originally a member of the Imperial Court, and later came to help inexplicably when the Imperial Palace crusade against Kaido. Ninja. You. Kinemon pulled out his saber, and slashed at Anon. Caught off guard, Eren looked at the saber piercing his chest with an incredulous look on his face. Brother Kinemon, I'm not your big brother. Kinemon drew out his saber, looked at Shinobi coldly, and then turned his head to look at Dylan. Xiaoju and he Song, who can live? Dylan chuckled. Sorry, neither. You want to break your promise. Dylan raised his finger and shook it. I didn't break my promise, it was you who didn't answer correctly, right? Kurozumi Kanjuro. Ha 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 ha. Kurozumi Kanjuro laughed wildly, and then he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Dylan. It's been a wonderful life to see Kazuki's house as it is now. After speaking, he stood up and looked at Jinemon. That's right, it's me, Kurozumi Kanjuro. A place like Wanokuni deserves such a fate. Ha 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 ha. Dylan's flank, Kazuki Sukiyaki's mouth that has been paired to a skeleton opens and closes. Oden, look at you, a good job. $1,000, no more, no less. Shinobi, who fell on the ground, was still breathing, and blood foamed from the corner of her mouth, and she raised her head and looked at Kinemon with difficulty. Kinemon katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. As Eren's arm slowly dropped, the scene fell into dead silence. Kinemon looked at Kanjuro who was facing him with a grim expression, and then at Shinobu who was on the ground. Eren, I'm sorry. He stretched out his hand tremblingly, and finally put it down slowly. Dylan raised his chin towards Tahir who was on the flank, and Kawamatsu and Kikunojo who stayed in place were reduced to ashes. Okay, the last game begins. Dylan clapped his hands. A marine holds a frying pan under Kazuki's Sukiyaki body. Also worthy of being called a hero. Dylan raised Shura and pointed at Momosuke. Come on, cook hot pot with your grandpa's ashes, and show me the ashes. It's cooked and finished. I'll consider making your death easier. Dylan raised his hand and sucked the iron pot containing Oden into the air. The 9 heroes of the Red Scabbard also died. The hot pot that turned into iron chains flew towards Kinemon, trapping Kinemon tightly in place. Boom. Late. In the iron pot, a pot full of Kanto cooking is placed inside. Dylan looked at the direction of the light painting, and said coldly, Kazuki Oden, he likes to cook hot pot with other people's ashes, such a person, you still love him, then. Kinemon sighed, and the Kazuki family disappeared completely. Into minced meat. Cowardly, incompetent, selfish, this is the samurai. As the chain became tighter and tighter, pieces of flesh began to explode from Kinemon's body. Kinemon, you useless person. Momosuke looked at the only Kinemon left beside him. Kakaka. Kinemon's body exploded. Chapter 191 Cooking Hot Pot. Flesh from the explosion of Kinemon's body fell on Momosuke. He trembled and looked in horror at Dylan who was slowly walking towards him. Invincible. Snapped. Momosuke threw Tien Yuyuzan and Yanmo aside and knelt on the ground. Please, let it go. I'm not going to be Wanokuni's general. From now on, you will be Wanokuni's general. No, you are the king of Wanokuni, God. Looking at Momosuke who was prostrate on the ground, Dylan chuckled lightly. What? Don't follow your father's back. Do not. Snapped. Dylan held Momosuke's neck with one hand, and a burst of electricity instantly destroyed his body. Boom. Dylan tossed him aside, the electricity destroying only his bones, nothing else. Shiryu. Yes. Cut out the wound, put salt on it, and hang it at the gate of the city. Let the wild birds eat him alive. Send someone to Kuri to dig out Kazuki Oden's bones for me. After Momosuke is dead, put his bones together with Kazuki Oden, Kazuki Sukiyaki. Cook hot pot. Give it to everyone in Wano-kuni. To understanding. On the outskirts of Wano-kuni, a huge figure stood on the sea. Uranus. His breath was almost gone. There was a look of sadness in the elephant's empty eyes. Joey boy, destiny, it's over. A berserk breath appeared in front of the elephant master's huge head. Any questions? Quote. After being silent for a while, the elephant lord conveyed his consciousness to Dylan. There is no more. The pain in the world, I hope you will end it. If you can use my place, you can order it. After speaking, the elephant master raised his head and glanced at Wano-kuni, then turned and left. On the warship of G5, Dylan stood at the bow and faced the wind. There was a sound of footsteps behind him. Ain walked over to him and stood quietly. The two stood side by side, looking at the gradually calming sea in the distance. Think I'm too cruel? Ain shook his head. I never think so. After a pause, Ian said, I am a sword, and I don't think about these things. Bell-Mel told me a few years ago that only with firm belief can everything be cut. And, quote. Ian turned his head and glanced at Wano-kuni's direction. Those people are not worthy of anyone's pity. Dylan nodded. After a while, Dylan said, according to what I told you, if you can get to that point, you will be completely out of human nature. Tahir told me that he will help you change after he has dealt with the fur tribe in the future. Wano-kuni. But. Dylan looked at Ain. If Wano-kuni hasn't changed before you and I leave, if you can't get rid of slavishness, samurai, etc. There was a trace of indifference in Dylan's eyes. Just sink Wano-kuni into the bottom of the sea, there is no need for such a place to exist. Okay. After returning to G5, Dylan didn't talk about Wano-kuni to Ayu. Advertisement. Momosuke also feeds the birds at the city gate. Brothers Gaiman and Shiryu are still working there repeatedly. All warriors, gangsters, will be completely wiped out. What? Seeing Dylan and Ian walk out of the elevator platform, Garrett, who was holding a carrot, was taken aback, and then hid behind the pillar. Ain frowned. Ah, sorry. Dylan Vice Admiral, Ian Rear Admiral. Garrett, ignoring the carrots on the ground, quickly jumped out and saluted Dylan and Ain. She is now a soldier of G5. During her time here, she also learned a lot. Don't be so serious. After Dylan nodded to Garrett, he was about to return to the office. After hesitating for a moment, Garrett asked cautiously, Where's Vice Admiral? Where's Brother Tahir? He has gone to the capital. If you look for him, you can go to the capital. Ah yes. Ah no. Garrett raised his hand and waved it. It's the cat mother-in-law who wants to see you. Okay. Granny Cat, that old cat that looks wrinkled. Dylan rubbed his chin. The old cat seemed to have been planning to change the fur tribe, but it seemed that he hadn't found the right opportunity. She pushed Tahir forward step by step only after Tahir appeared. Where? Ah, my mother-in-law also went to the capital and said she was going to see King Ganchao. Brother Tahir should have gone to look for her. I'll let you know. After speaking, Garrett disappeared with a whoosh. Dylan and Ain next to him looked at each other, and he didn't understand why Garrett was always so afraid of him. Rabbit instinct. By the time Tahir helped the cat mother-in-law to Dylan's office, Nuo Chigao had already made tea. Dylan nodded towards Granny Cat. After she sat down, Dylan asked, What's the matter? Is it worth coming here at your age? The cat mother-in-law grinned her dry lips and said, About the fur tribe. Fur tribe. Last time in Zou, the fur clan had already expressed their position and attitude, and even sent Garrett to come. There shouldn't be any need to comment again. I don't know if it's because she's an old man, but the cat mother-in-law turned her head and glanced at Garrett, who was standing restrained by the side, and said, After the war is over, Tahir will find a place for the fur clan to settle down. The cat mother-in-law nodded. Through some information that Tahir gave me, I know that other people are not qualified to participate in the war on the Red Line. But, after all, the Black Banner Army is just one of the troops in the Balchico Islands. It is good. Dylan looked beyond them to the sea in the distance. In addition to the Third Army, South Blue can transfer the Fourth and Fifth Armies to the past. West Blue, in his original plan, was shot from the Balchico Islands. Participate in the war. The cat mother-in-law looked at Dylan and smiled. West Blue or North Blue, we are willing to contribute to the change of the world and follow your orders. Tahir is not willing to lead the fur clan now, so Sicilian will preside over it for the time being. After this period of discussion, we hope to do something for the world and for ourselves. I hope you can live in this sea in an upright manner and happily. You are all human beings. Maybe Mariajoy still has the potion in your hand, or you can develop that potion in the future. But these choices are all yours. East Blue no longer needs additional staff. And Alex is just the most gifted young man. Looking at her old face, Dylan thought for a moment. Dylan nodded. Then form a coalition of fur tribes and Dong Tata tribes to go to West Blue. Remember, the targets are only pirates and those brutal regimes. Dylan glanced at Tahir. Not the strongest young man, let alone the strongest man. Chapter 192 Supervisor. Water Capital. Dylan sat in a huge room atop a tower in the center of the water city. Ace Bagu sat across from him. Already prepared. Ace Bagu put the blueprint of Water City on the table between the two of them. The personnel have been repeatedly screened and tested for 10 years. And most of them are members of the original Water Capital. These things are up to you. Dylan didn't look at the drawings on the table, which was his usual style. Do not use suspicious people, and do not doubt employing people. Ace Bagu nodded, but didn't really end the topic here. He pointed to the central part of the Water Capital drawing. The power system is provided by Vegapunk, and it took about 6 years to deliver it in batches. The main part is all forged with G5 feed alloy, and some weapons and driving parts are super alloy. Vegapunk. Dylan looked at the drawings on the table and smiled. Although G5 has no extra contact with Vegapunk except for the alloy business, but he also holds many other forces. Medical treatment in the Kingdom of Chia, shipbuilding in the capital of water, and plants in Greenbit. He believes Vegapunk did see something. After all, this exaggerated power core alone is enough to make people imagine. Dylan wasn't entirely reassured by Vegapunk, but he wasn't overly skeptical either. That guy is just a mad scientist. His purpose is to explore endless mysteries, and to him, it doesn't matter what force he belongs to. As Geisa Current said, there is a market for geniuses wherever they go. Moreover, the power system of the water capital has also undergone repeated tests and running in for about 2 years. Although Ace Bagu has not confirmed it 100%, Dylan himself thinks there is no problem. Where's Yokozuna? On the outskirts, there have been more and more people coming to test things out recently. According to your order, I can't show up to give them a chance, so Yokozuna has been in charge of guarding the outskirts recently. Yokozuna, that insanely powerful frog. With the Murloc karate that Tom taught him, the strength of the frog in the water is also slightly inferior to Tom. For 10 years, Dylan has kept it lurking in the dark to protect the safety of the water capital. Especially in the first few years when Ace Bagu hadn't grown up, when the outside world wanted to covet the water capital, it was Yokozuna who secretly took action to create shipwrecks to stop the enemy. Let's proceed according to the original plan. Yokozuna stays in the water capital to guard the flanks. Ace Bagu nodded. He understood that this was the last order. Although these plans were basically formulated a few years ago, this time it is a formal implementation notice. After the war is over, you will move out, the capital of water. No. Shenlong. Handed over to Vegapunk for a second transformation. Clear. City of Water. After Dylan created the superalloy, he secretly reached an agreement with Vegapunk. The powertrain and some mechanical additions are provided by Vegapunk. Water Capital is responsible for forging and modification. In the past 10 years, the world has long been accustomed to the unparalleled speed of Dark Dragon, Adams Dylan. When people think of him, they take it for granted that such a man does not need a warship at all. And Dylan never showed his car to the world. Even if someone vaguely remembered that he had forged an exclusive car in G5, it was selectively forgotten. The Shenlong briefly disappeared after the G5 appeared. No one knows where it went, but no one is chasing him. Advertisement. After all, with the strength of Dark Dragon, it's just a ship, not very important. Just after the completion of the Shenlong, Dylan quickly dismantled him and took him to the water capital. At that time, the water capital had been completely controlled by Ace Bagu, and Dylan gave him an unprecedented task. Reform the entire water capital, turned him into a mobile fortress, and my request is far more than Pluton. Ace Bagu then secretly went to G5, and the master and apprentice finally confirmed the sketch of Shenlong, after repeated revisions and comparisons through Pluton's drawings. In the following years, more than 70% of the alloys in the G5 alloy workshop were secretly sent to the capital of water. The blueprint of Water City has also been improved through constant revisions. A year after the Summit War, the transformation of the Dragon was completed. Ancient weapon. Pluton should be related to the blood of the Neferudali family, and Dylan has no intention of contaminating it. Let it continue to sleep, whether it is a legend or a hope. Let it continue to sleep. And Shenlong. After the war, Dylan will give it to Vegapunk. Let him study in the direction of the spaceship. Although Tom and Ace Bagu are trustworthy, it does not mean that their descendants or successors have no ambitions. Only one Pluton can make pirates flock to it. 8 years ago, the Dragon, which is far superior to Pluton, will inevitably attract more coveted after showing its power. And those who master it must also lose themselves in the Uzumaki of power. With a sharp weapon in his body, he will kill himself. He didn't want the hero to become a corrupt sinner in the future, so the best way was to cut off the source. It was handed over to Vegapunk because Dylan believed that Vegapunk had no ambition to compete for hegemony, and because he left behind enough to limit Vegapunk. Ace Bagu is also well aware of this. Tom first agreed to Dylan's plan after Dylan came up with the idea many years ago, but then he said it immediately. After the war, if the Shenlong cannot be restored, then the entire water capital should be relocated. The boatmen shouldn't have too much power. Or. These are Tom's words. Ready, one of the overseers. Dylan nodded. Although they escaped in the end, they were severely injured under the attack of the two sides. It's been prepared for 800 years. Ephraim smiled and looked at Dylan. Ephraim looked up at the mist surrounding the Balchico Islands. Oh, I don't remember telling Alex what's going on here. When Dylan came through the mists again, all the armies were ready. Haven't you already arranged that? We are more than willing to take on that responsibility. Dylan raised his eyebrows. It's my own guess. If nothing else happens, after the war, you probably want us to come back here and become the supervisors of this world, right? Dylan looked at the several strong men standing in the innermost circle, then turned to look at Ephraim. Balchico Islands. In the war 800 years ago, they did not support Joey Boye, nor did they support the 20 kings. What's the plan after the war? Chapter 193 The Overseers. Looking at the indifferent Ephraim Dylan, his brows were slightly frowned. How wise and close to the demon. He has repeatedly confirmed it many times, from the composition of Ephraim's blood factor many times. He is human, there is no hybrid of any other race. And his force is not strong, as long as Dylan is willing, he can listen to his voice, without any scruples. Although the name is very similar, but he really has nothing to do with I am. Don't be surprised, this is the summary of our wisdom of the ages. It is also derived from the judgment of the summary of external information. Every once in a while, the Black Banner Army will send people back to the Balchico Islands to convey what they have seen and heard, and all the changes in the world. I do have this idea. Dylan sat opposite him, but it's just part of my plan, you also said. Dylan smiled and looked at the old man with wrinkled skin in front of him. Even if you want to, you are just one of the supervisors. Therefore, this matter still needs to follow your own will and choice. Ephraim leaned on his crutch with his withered palm, turned it slightly, and after a moment said. The Balchico Islands are huge, we've lived here for nearly a millennium, and we're actually used to it. Our goal is to bring order to the world, not to rule the world. Ephraim's withered lips slightly raised. Alex, he sent someone to your country to see, Greenbit, Girona. Those places are good. You have enough power and enough system to make it happen. Doesn't it conflict with your ideas? Ephraim shook his head. Ideology, the ultimate goal is to realize a certain vision. Maybe our paths are different, but I believe that all paths lead to the same goal. This is why we are willing to become supervisors. Okay. Dylan glanced around. Those are the core members of the Balchico Islands. They could hear their conversation clearly. Dylan stood up and greeted everyone slightly. Thank you for everything you have done for this world. After sitting down again, Dylan smiled at Ephraim. Occasionally, you can send someone out, otherwise it will be bad for future generations. Okay. Ephraim didn't understand what Dylan meant. Hundreds of years of intermarriage, if all of them are carried out between these tens of thousands of people, there will be many hidden dangers. Even if you return to the Balchico Islands in the future, you must let young people go out from time to time. Otherwise, there will be problems with the children born, there will be more and more. There was a hint of thought in the old man's expression. According to records, this problem is indeed becoming more and more obvious. It was indeed caused by intermarriage. There is no doubt, so after the war is over, the first thing to do is to take in some homeless women and children to dilute your increasingly deformed blood. Understood, then we will also send people to Dahai to adopt orphans in the future. Sky Island. Master Thor. Gonfall stood under the temple and looked up at Dylan. Dylan sat above the temple. This place has a very unique meaning, and Dylan hasn't changed it drastically, and the people of Sky Island still call him God to this day. I have moved Sky Island a certain distance. From now on, no one from Shanghai will come here through the Shanghai Current. Gunfall stood below with his hands down. But that's only in general, and it's only for ordinary people. In order to ensure that this place will not be attacked by powerful enemies, I will leave a few special things inside the temple. Once you encounter an irresistible external attack, there will be channels to seek help and methods that can give you the strength to resist. Advertisement. Gonfall. Yes. After a while, I will leave this world temporarily, but I will come back again later. Remember the mission I left for Sky Island? Yes. We will fulfill our duties as a lighthouse. Once Qinghai falls into unstoppable war and chaos, we will light up the signal. Dylan stood up and looked at the historical text in the center of the temple that recorded the message, Poseidon, Poseidon. You are just one of them. You are watching Qinghai, and there are others watching you. Yes. When Gonfall looked up, Dylan was gone. G5. When Dylan came back to his office, there was a dead fisheye slumped on the couch in his office. What are you doing? Visiting the prison. Ah, what are you talking about? I don't have that kind of plan. After sitting down, Dylan raised his feet and looked at Kuzan opposite. Then what are you doing here? You broke up with Teach. Hearing Dylan's words, Kuzan sat up. I just walked around his place, and never said that I joined the pirates. HMPH, UB********** D. Dylan pursed his lips. If you don't break up with him, I'll break your leg at least when I kill you. You're an awesome Marine Admiral. You hang out with that kind of B********* D all day. Hello. Kuzan looked at Dylan's malicious eyes and subconsciously touched his thigh. Why is this guy always thinking about breaking his own leg? I went to East Blue. After a moment of silence, Kuzan looked up at Dylan, and there was something incomprehensible in his eyes. It's a good place. So, Dylan lit a cigarette and took a puff and looked at Kuzan. Does he like Kuzan? It's okay to be friends, but Dylan doesn't like him as a comrade in arms. From a standpoint, Kuzan is not a qualified soldier. Although learning to think and question is a very good quality. But that's normal. If you look forward and backward during the war, it is really difficult for people to trust their backs to him with peace of mind. That's why, despite his close personal relationship with Kuzan, it never occurred to him to include him in the G5 or the Peace Roundtable. Under his banner, either as someone with a firm stand, such as Zephyr, Tahir, Tom, or someone who never doubts himself, like Ian, Shiryu, Craig, Leo. Although Kuzan is powerful, firstly he has a lazy style, and secondly he has not yet found his goal. He did not make other plans and arrangements for Kuzan. After all, it is a kind salted fish. Let him continue to find his own way. Mariajoy, I'm going too. Dylan looked up at Kuzan unexpectedly. When did you go crazy? Chapter 194 The Fishmen Island. The Fishmen Island. Dragon Palace Kingdom. Palace Inner Hall. Neptune, Shirahoshi, and Tom sat together. Start. Okay. Tom nodded. The migration plan of the Fishmen Island had been drawn up by him and Tom many years ago. But it wasn't until half a year ago that Neptune fully stated his position that he asked Tom to tell them part of the plan. If you give favors for no reason, most of the time you will not get gratitude in return. They have demarcated an area in East Blue for the Fishmen Island. As for why it's East Blue, Dylan didn't hide from Neptune either. East Blue is my territory. After the Fishmen Island migrates there, they will have the opportunity to integrate into the world as soon as possible, and they can also receive strong supervision. Although a new order will be established in the world, it does not mean that racial barriers can be broken down immediately. It will take time. Neptune was relieved when Dylan bluntly expressed his distrust of the Murlocs through the phone bug. If he trusts the Murlocs without reservation, then Neptune really needs to consider whether East Blue has hidden murderous intentions. Murloc. Also, Tom looked at Neptune with a serious expression. Everyone in Murloc Street will be imprisoned, not G5. There is a new prison waiting for them in East Blue. Neptune frowned. This is not good news. Although Murloc Street is now in decline, there are still a small group of extremists in it. Shark Star. Following Neptune's low drink, the eldest prince of the Dragon Palace Kingdom came from the outer hall to the inner hall. You take the Dragon Palace army to Murloc Street and arrest them all. After only a moment of hesitation, Neptune gave the order. Murloc Street was notorious, and Neptune had always been tolerant to them before thinking of his compatriots. But now is not the time to be indecisive. This is a critical moment for the future of the 5 million people on the Fishmen Island. In addition, I want to take Jinbei away. Shirahoshi's lips moved slightly, but in the end he didn't speak. Jinbei has a strong calling ability among Murlocs. Even if he loses an arm, he is still a master of Murloc karate. Tom looked up at Shirahoshi, thought for a moment and said, I won't kill him, but I will let him out after serving a few years in G5. This was also arranged by Dylan himself. For Jinbei, Dylan is not a big evil, but he definitely doesn't like it. Indecisive, follow the wind. He imposed the future and safety of the Murlocs on himself all day long, but he refused to show any iron and blood methods. Even in the face of the rebels and saboteurs in the Fishmen Island, they are always submissive, such people. Extremely hypocritical. What is said to accept Shichibukai's invitation for the safety of the Fishmen Island is actually a greater part of the reason is to save his good brother Arlong. After becoming a Shichibukai, I didn't think about using the right time and place and how to tap the Fishmen Island's own strength to strengthen the race. Instead, Whitebeard came today and called Whitebeard Daddy, and Linlin came tomorrow and planned to call Linlin Mama. This kind of person is not much better than Maomushi and Anuarashi. After Tom tore off his right arm, Jinbei became a little depressed. He has been hiding in Murloc Street and refused to come out. Tuk tuk. After cleaning Murloc Street, Sharkstar stood in front of Jinbei's hut and knocked on his door. When he was young, he also admired Jinbei very much. But Jinbei has disappointed the Fishmen Island time and time again. He is always compromising, inwardly and outwardly. Compromise to compromise, the days of going to the Fishmen Island are getting worse day by day. When Tom appeared on the Fishmen Island, those unscrupulous slave traders began to be alert and afraid. After the Summit War 2 years ago, even if the Fishmen Island did not fly the G5 flag, the world has already accepted that the Fishmen Island is the territory of G5. Advertisement. And with the Sabayati archipelago outlawed, the celestial dragons no longer come down from the red line to flaunt their wealth. The market for Murloc slaves gradually disappeared. Come in, the door is open. Jinbei sat in the room calmly, his right sleeve was empty, and he was holding a bowl of wine in his left. Shark pushed the door open and entered, but Jinbei's room was still very tidy. Boss Jinbei. For this childhood idol, Shark Star still maintains respect. Ah, Prince, is Tom here? The 3 Shark Star brothers are all Tom's apprentices. Martial arts apprentice. Yes, the teacher came with an order from the Dark Dragon, Vice Admiral. Understood. Jinbei stood up, patted his robe, and walked out the door. When he got to the door, Jinbei looked back. Years ago, they used to drink in this cabin and imagine the future of the Fishmen Island together. Brother Tiger, maybe, I really did something wrong. Under Shirahoshi's call, there was a response from the deep sea that no one else could hear. It is the king who is calling us. Dozens of super-sized sea kings came to the side of the Fishmen Island following Shirahoshi's call and looked at the Fishmen Island quietly. We are preparing to migrate. Please help bring Noah to East Blue. At your command, my lord. Several super-sized sea kings swam to the bottom of Noah and picked it up and slowly approached the Fishmen Island. Tom stood at the junction between the Fishman Island and Noah and watched the crowd board Noah. The four seas returned to one. Even without this idea, the location of the Fishman Island is very dangerous in the near future. It is directly below Mariajoy. The future battle intensity is definitely not comparable to Summit War. That was the battle of the gods. The destruction of the Fishman Island was inevitable. Neptune, I will leave the rest to you. Shirahoshi will follow me to G5 and prepare for the final battle. Then he turned and looked at Shirahoshi with an encouraging look. At this critical moment, Shirahoshi must be included under the protection of G5. Take care of yourself. Poseidon's power is irreplaceable. Shirahoshi. Just as Ace Bagu has disappeared from everyone's vision. Sharkstar walked up to Neptune and looked at Shirahoshi with the same expression. With Teacher Tom here, we are not worried about your safety, but you must also remember that this is not just the Fishman Island, Murlocs, and mermaids. This is also a war between humans who have been enslaved for thousands of years and the alien race. Shirahoshi, your mother's last wish has been fulfilled, and we are already on the journey back to land, and now, it's time to fulfill your own wish. You represent the mermaid, and Mr. Tom represents the Murloc. Give the answer to this world. Neptune passed the trident across his chest to Shirahoshi. Open black lens bracket update close black lens bracket. Father. Swim in the sea and enjoy the sun freely. Clear. Shirahoshi nodded vigorously. Tom looked at the huge Ark Noah and said in a deep voice. Sure, there must be no more benevolence of women. Neptune nodded solemnly. East Blue, you can go directly according to the route given by Dylan, and someone will settle you down, remember. Chapter 195 The Outside World. Hive Island. This place has been known as the Island of Pirates since decades ago. Because it is located in the depths of the New World and the surrounding natural environment is very harsh, it has never been occupied by the world government. Today's Skull Island has long lost the laughter and excitement of the past. The strongest creature, Kaido of the Beasts also lost. Now the big pirate who can be called famous on this sea. There is only Blackbeard, Marshall D. Teach. Can he still be called the Emperor of the Sea? Those pirates who had been rewarded for their evil deeds fell into endless panic. Escape. Can't escape, although many places in New World are not occupied by G5 because of the geographical environment, but their fleet has been cruising on this route. Hit. People with this idea have already died in the Battle of Sabayati Archipelago and Deris Rosa. Pirates are very well informed. They understand better than the world who the people who appeared in those two battles are and what kind of power they represent. Blackbeard, does he really have the money to fight against the Dark Dragon? It looks like we're in a bad place. The captains of the Blackbeard pirates gather together. Although G5 has not directly attacked them in the past few years, it has frequently compressed their living space. Today, they only have a sea area of 100 or 200 miles around the Hive Island. They can feel that they are more like a group of playthings kept here by Dark Dragon. There may be a butcher knife at any time. Grand Line. The country of monsters, Makabaka. As Dylan landed, the monkey D dragon who felt the breath soon appeared in front of his eyes. Are you going to start? Soon. Dylan opened his heart and felt the surrounding area. Only Long and Koala are here, no other senior cadres are here. Do you need our assistance? This time, Long didn't try again, and directly expressed his wishes. Unnecessary. Regarding the attitude of the Revolutionary Army, Dylan is even worse than Marine. Although there are mobs in Marine, most people are still working hard to maintain peace and kill thieves bravely. What about the Revolutionary Army? Destroy, destroy, destroy. Devastation like a locust crossing. After the destruction, I didn't know how to build at all. After the destruction, I never considered what fate and ending those countries would face after they left. In their minds, they came, they defeated the corrupt rulers, they were victorious. And then, go to the next place and reenact the scene. Seeing the indifferent look in Dylan's eyes, the dragon pondered for a moment. Although you say so, the Revolutionary Army will still do things according to its own wishes. I know, so I'm here to inform you. Although there are quite a few people in his hands, if it is really spread over the entire sea, it will still be stretched. In 20 years, this is already the limit of what he can do. You should also know that even without me, it would not be difficult for my people to destroy the Revolutionary Army, but I didn't do that, why? Dragon did not deny this. Although he hasn't played against anyone from G5, according to his guess, there are 3 to 5 people in East Blue alone who can suppress him. What about G5? What about his other Dark Sons? I know, this is also the reason why the Revolutionary Army withdrew from East Blue. Whether it is the upper-level power or the grassroots power, you are far more than the Revolutionary Army. The originally calm sea surface around Makabaka suddenly rolled up a gust of wind and waves. Advertisement. But I'll go anyway, personally. 25 years ago, Monkey D. Dragon, who is still serving as Vice Admiral in Marine, has high hopes from his father. Just after Roger was arrested, he received a special transfer order. Requisition from Mariajoy. He was transferred to Mariajoy to guard Mariajoy. Although Long was a little puzzled at the time, he still accepted the transfer order. That is, this year's garrison made him completely change his beliefs. The evil of the celestial dragons hit his lower limit of cognition again and again. Those alien and human slaves who were captured and trafficked. Like cattle, they don't know which comes first, death or tomorrow. Celestial dragons enjoy vast and exaggerated wealth. Enjoy unrestricted supremacy. Snapped. Damn thing. A gold pistol is held against a woman's forehead. A celestial dragon looked angrily at the woman kneeling on the ground begging for mercy. There was no pity in his eyes. Just because the bloody slave was one step slower, it put him half a step behind the other celestial dragons. This makes him very embarrassed. Yes, I'm sorry. I really don't have the strength. The woman knelt down on the ground trembling and muttering to herself. There was no color in her eyes, and she knew it was useless to beg for mercy. Boom. After the gunshot, the woman fell into a pool of blood. The dragon standing in the distance clenched his fists tightly. Is this the world Marine is guarding? He has been stationed in the four seas and knows what the conditions of those countries are like. He has seen what many countries have paid to become a world government member country, or to keep their places in the world government member country. But here, the dragon's body trembled, the heart in his chest was roaring, and the blood in his body was rushing. What? A low exclamation interrupted the dragon's deep thinking. A long-haired woman ran from the corner of the wall just in time to bump into the dragon, which was trembling with anger. Yes, I'm sorry. After the woman apologized, she looked around for a while and then her expression tightened. In the distance, a group of slave-like people were rushing towards this side, and their faces were very anxious. Hey, that Marine. Did you see? Before the man finished speaking, he was pushed by his companion. Seemingly aware of his gaffe, the slave paused and asked, did you see anyone else passing by here? Other people. Long looked at their anxious expressions. Did any slaves escape? This woman. Help. A soft voice came from behind the dragon. I managed to escape. Let me see the outside world. Long's heart tightened, and he said to the opposite slaves expressionlessly, I've been here all this time, and I haven't seen anyone else. The slave who asked for directions was kicked in the waist by the companion behind him just as he opened his mouth. Are you crazy? The face of the slave who asked for directions turned pale instantly. Although he was in a hurry just now, if he really said it. Look elsewhere. A group of slaves ran towards the distance. After they walked away, the dragon still stood there. Who are you? A slave. Yes, I just escaped. Can you take me out of here? Chapter 196, Female Slave. First, am Marine. My duty is to guard the Holy Land. In order to avoid being discovered by others, Long still stood where he was and did not look back. Although it was only a short moment just now, he clearly remembered that the hair of the woman behind him was not combed upwards, nor did he have the unique chip imprint of celestial dragons on his right neck. There is no such strange oxygen mask. That's why he concluded that the women were slaves and not celestial dragons. After a moment of silence, the woman's gnat-like voice came from around the corner. Are you going to take me back? There was not much sadness in that voice, but Long, who had just experienced the scene of the slave being shot to death, felt his heart shake again. Take her back. What will be her fate? Take her away. But, I am still in the garrison period. You go. Long stood outside and looked at the sky. I won't catch you, and I can't take you away. Since you can escape, I hope you can escape by yourself. He couldn't see the expression of the woman behind him, but he must be very disappointed. After a while, the woman's voice came from behind him. Thanks. Then he heard a burst of small footsteps gradually going away. Hey. During this year's garrison, many things he held fast in his heart were shaken. It was just a glimpse just now, that woman. To be honest, she is very beautiful. But in this kind of place, the more beautiful a woman is, the more miserable her fate will be. Being teased, abused, transferred, and given away. A deep sense of powerlessness and self-blame welled up in Long's heart. Another group of celestial dragons led their slaves across the road from him. The slaves, who looked numb or terrified, crawled on the ground like animals, following the pace and rhythm of their masters, and crawled forward quickly or slowly. An uncontrollable anger welled up in Long's heart again. Simply, damn it. After returning to the station, the dragon lay down in the tub. More and more tired, more and more confused. What is he guarding, and who is guarding whom? Is the unlimited power of celestial dragons really justified? Just as Long slowly closed his eyes, a rush of alarm bells sounded. Okay. He put on his clothes and walked out of the station. The Marines outside had all gathered together. Vice Admiral, an order came from Pangu City. They lost a very important person there, and ordered Marine to assist in the search. Long's heart skipped a beat, but he still asked blankly, who? It's not clear. Just say it's a woman. Really? Long nodded towards Marine in the station. Then you guys help with the search, I'll be there later. Yes. Is the person who can make Pangu Palace order the search, a slave of the direct royal family? The identification of celestial dragons is very strict. Even if the slaves captured from the lower world become concubines of celestial dragons, they cannot obtain the status of celestial dragons. But their offspring can. After Marine left, the dragon raised his feet and walked towards the little garden next to the station. Come out, Russell. The garden shrubs shook slightly at first, but no one responded. If you don't come out, I'll go. Don't. Wait. Just as the dragon was about to turn around and leave, a woman emerged from the bushes. The woman at noon. Looking at the leaves and dirt on her face, Long was slightly stunned. I said, I won't help you leave, and I don't want to catch you. I have nowhere else to go, the outside is full of people in white clothes. CP. Long was silent again. Since Pangu City gave the order, the CP will definitely be dispatched. If he drove her out, it would be tantamount to killing her. Advertisement. Follow me. After returning to his residence, the dragon took out the food and put it on the table. After the search is over, you leave by yourself. Oh. After speaking, the woman carefully picked up the food on the table and began to gobble it up. Watching Long stand up and walk towards the door, the woman raised her head. I'm going to carry out the mission, you stay here. Oh. The dragon returned to the marine station after a circle outside. When he returned to the residence, the woman had already fallen asleep on the table. There were still some food residues on the corners of her mouth. Seeing the tired look on the woman's face, Long sighed lightly, took off his cloak and covered her body, and finally locked the door behind him, walked to the other side of the sofa and lay down. Mariajoy was on alert for 2 full weeks. Although the search had spread from inside the city to outside the city, Long felt more and more confused. This woman, what is her identity? Is she the concubine of 5 elders? For half a month, he has been carefully hiding that woman. He once asked her where she ran out from, but the woman didn't know anything about it. The dragon even suspected at one point that she was the celestial dragon's. But she does not have a chip on her right neck, and she behaves very differently from celestial dragons. Was the memory extracted by the fruit power? Or have you been locked up somewhere and haven't had any contact with the real world? Just when the dragon was wondering, Mariajoy's ban was lifted. What followed was a call for his transfer. One Piece, Goldo Roger, is about to be executed in East Blue, and he has also been redeployed back to Marineford. When the order was received, the dragon's face also showed joy. You can leave now. Leave. This woman is so innocent that she doesn't even have her own name. The smile on Long's face froze again. After getting along for half a month, he could clearly feel how little this woman knew about the outside world. Except for talking, eating and basic self-care, her knowledge of the whole world is blank. Even if we go back to the sea, I am afraid that he will be easily deceived and become a slave again. Let's go back to the sea first. Well, thank you, Mr. Long. The dragon disguises her as Marine and takes her away from Mariajoy. Is this the sea, Mr. Long? The woman leaned on the window and looked at the vast and boundless sea and exclaimed. How big is the ocean? What's under the sea? Is the sea water drinkable? This ship is his special car. After leaving Mariajoy, he has passed through the headquarters and needs to go back to Goa Kingdom first. As the son of marine hero, the strength of the younger generation Vice Admiral, Marineford is also exceptionally tolerant. I'll be in my hometown in a few days. Just settle down there. I have one more important thing. Before Long could finish speaking, a warning came from the watchtower. It's the ship of the CP organization. They have the intention to attack. The dragon stood up solemnly. Has it been discovered? He glanced at the bewildered woman, sighed and walked out of the cabin. Monkey D. Dragon, hand over that man. On the opposite bow, there are several CP0 members in white clothes. CP0. Seeing that Long didn't answer, CP0 raised his hand, and several ships surrounded his warship. You are the son of hero Garp. You have a great future in Marine, I hope you. Before CP0 finished speaking, Long slowly lowered the justice cloak behind him. This Marine, it's not right. I'll make it up at noon, I'm too tired. Close black lens bracket chapter 197 Father's Power. Marine Vice Admiral, Monkey D. Dragon disappeared from the Marineford battle sequence. There is no explanation to the outside world. Marine hero, Monkey D. Garp is still laughing and joking every day. Seeing him like this, everyone didn't think about the whereabouts of the dragon. After all, there are often people in Marine who will perform some mysterious tasks. The day of Roger's execution is fast approaching. On this day, although the town of Rog was heavily guarded, it did not prevent those little-known pirates and people from other forces from coming to watch the execution. The hooded dragon stood among the crowd looking up at the chained man on the execution platform. One Piece, Goldo Roger. As the long knife penetrated his body, the square was plunged into a mountain roar and a tsunami. Is this your purpose? Goldo Roger. Detonate the world, but you do it. Really good. Although Mariajoy's viciousness is heinous, he has seen places that are completely disordered during his days stationed in the world. The people of those places do not. Neither. The world government is wrong, and neither are the pirates. There should be another way. There must be another way. After watching the execution, the dragon left the town of Rog. On a certain island, there are still people waiting for him. Mr. Long, what's the matter? Long sat on the reef by the beach and looked into the distance. The woman brought out from Mariajoy walked carefully to his side. Looking at the seagulls in the distance, Long frowned. Tell me, is this world a good place? World. The woman raised her head in doubt. I don't know what this world is like, Mr. Long. Long was slightly taken aback. He remembered that this woman's understanding of the world was very weak. But he didn't know how to explain to her the oppression and plunder all over the world. If Mr. Long thinks the world is bad, he can try to change it. The dragon's body froze, changing a world. Not long ago, he witnessed the beginning of the wave of the times. Undoubtedly, Roger's provocative words will attract countless able-bodied people to see. What will happen then? Pirates are rampant, and more countries are falling into war and poverty. More and more countries have been removed from the world government because they cannot pay the high, heavenly gold. But this way, he thinks it's wrong. Those who yearn for power, Wealth and fame will certainly shake the grassroots rule of the world government, but they will also cause devastating disasters to the people. Where is the road? 4 years later, an organization called the Revolutionary Army began to sweep the four directions from the Grand Line. Retreat. Long standing at the bow of the boat waved his big hand and led the Revolutionary Army away from that country. On the distant port, the man who had just become the new king led the people to watch the fleet gratefully. Really? Thank you so much. After returning to the headquarters, the woman inside greeted her. You are back. The woman with a slightly swollen belly looked at her husband who had returned from the expedition with joy. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. The two said in unison. Then the two smiled at the same time. After a light hug, the dragon carefully stroked her lower abdomen, where a small life was being conceived. What's the name? Well, I like him to be a happy, healthy, lively kid, like. Advertisement. Like a happy little monkey. Little monkey. The woman showed a gentle smile. Yes, he is so active, he must be a naughty little monkey, why not call him Luffy? Monkey D. Luffy. Not long after the boy who symbolizes, happy, was born. His mother disappeared. All that remained at the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army were bloodlines and corpses all over the floor. Long frantically rummaged through the corpses. No. No, no, nowhere. Is it the world government? Is it a CP organization? The distraught dragon walked to the back of the house and looked at the little garden not far away. It was a tulip she planted herself. Wow. A faint cry flashed across the dragon's ear like lightning. He rushed to the edge of the tulip bushes and carefully pushed aside the lush flowers. A crumpled baby was lying in the cradle, and the baby was wearing the clothes his mother had prepared for him for a long time. There was still a piece of paper in that immature little hand. Protect Luffy. The note written in blood pierced the dragon's heart. For those dead revolutionary soldiers, their fatal wounds were finger-thick piercings. It's finger pistol. It's from the CP organization. Long gently picked up his son and stroked the top of his head carefully. Luffy, I will make the world a better place. So you are saying that this is a drama of human relations. Some plots have already been mentioned by Long when they met in Yixin Dojo. I suspect there is something wrong with it. Long stood side by side with Dylan, who looked elusive after shaking his head. I need to go to Mariajoy myself and confirm something. Although he has had some guesses over the years, as his ideals are gradually realized, he doesn't delve too deeply into those issues. It wasn't until he met Dylan that he further confirmed his guess from some hints from Dylan. At that time, the strength, organizational structure, and firmness of belief displayed by the Peace Round Table Conference far surpassed that of the very primitive Revolutionary Army. Dylan glanced sideways at the man next to him with slippers. He did not approve of the Revolutionary Army's way of thinking and means of solving problems. But this does not prevent him from affirming the man himself. Due to the lack of education and cognition, and being a Marine, he did not have enough time and space to think about deeper solutions, which is not his fault. To be able to stand up and resist, to be able to start from the perspective of the people. Just being able to do this is not easy. Compared with those guys who go out to sea to become thieves in pursuit of freedom, for no reason, his mind and courage are very valuable. Garp. You guy, you've been targeted from the moment you showed your strength. Even future generations were not spared. You have to know, even if you are Logia, even if you are the wind, it is still very dangerous. Dylan watched the changes of the blood factor in his body and pondered for a while. Even if you are trying to touch that threshold, you should have guessed what the result will be, right? What is the relationship? Long Saran smiled. Pursue ideals, touch ideals. Although we have never fought side by side, I admire you very much. You are so young, it only took you 20 years. No, you have achieved this level in only 10 years, whether it is personal power, the power of the upper class or the power of the people thinking, you have made an unprecedented change. Are you going to deprive a father of the right to seek the truth? Do not. Dylan turned his head and looked at him seriously, Monkey D. Dragon. The truth may be harder for you to accept than you think. If you're really ready, I'll be waiting for you in Mariajoy. Open black lens bracket annoyed close black lens bracket chapter 198 returning to Wano-kuni. After Dylan left, the dragon stood there thinking for a long time. He could vaguely feel that he was being calculated. Especially Luffy's journey along the way, from his point of view, is full of weirdness everywhere. Although Da Shang once helped them because of his own reasons, it was not at his behest. As the leader of a huge organization, he would never do such a thing. The subsequent series of events, including Garp's entanglement in Uzumaki, made Long more sure that there was a huge force behind all this. Kingdom of Goa. Since more than 10 years ago, several forces have been fighting openly and secretly in the seemingly calm, weakest sea. Revolutionary Army Eastern Army, Adams Dillon's people, CP organization, and people from that mysterious organization. It wasn't until after the Battle of Sabayati Archipelago and the Battle of de Res Rosa that the dragon truly realized how huge that organization was and how unfathomable its strength was. They can even drive the long-lost rocks. The new generation has little cognition and impression of rocks, but dragons do. His father's marine hero was named after that man, and father seemed to resist that name very much. It didn't seem like a winner's gesture at all. Kingdom of Girona. Camilla boarded the Marineford warship accompanied by Balmont. Branu, who was standing beside the warship, looked at the woman who was slowly approaching in front of him. Although he had seen his information in the data, Branu was still a little surprised when he saw the real person. So young. Girona is not a member of the world government, and Marine does not have a branch here. This kind of thing is very rare. Especially in such a big country. More than a year ago, when the saying that, Girona is the backyard of the dark dragon Adams Dillon, spread, Branu and the others really began to pay attention to this country that had only taken less than 2 decades to rise again. But by then it was too late. Joey Boy has entered the Grand Line, and their people in the Four Seas have gradually begun to migrate to the Grand Line except for guarding the gods. When the Red Hare ordered him to send someone to sneak in, it was already a dangerous place. Their people have come, but no news has ever been sent back, and no one has left here alive. Queen Camilla. Branu Commodore, thank you. Facing Camilla, Branu looked as usual. His Marine record was clean, and he didn't believe Adams Dillon knew who he was. The man rarely returns to Marineford and rarely attends large high-level meetings. On several occasions, he had deftly avoided meeting the man. After boarding the warship, Camilla smiled slightly at Branu. For the rest of the journey, I will leave it to Branu Commodore. The responsibility lies. The World Summit is about to start. Leo and the others are ready for the communication. Well, let's get ready too. Blackbeard. Dillon shook his head. Go to Wanokuni first. As the G5 fleet arrived at the date port in Julie, the surrounding people all looked over with admiration. My lord, the Emperor of Heaven. The surrounding people knelt on the ground respectfully. Dillon ignored them, took Ain and Tahir and continued to take the boat towards the capital of flowers. Advertisement. You see, this is the atmosphere here. Dillon looked over at Wanokuni. The weapons factory has almost been dismantled by the Guilman brothers. The air has become much fresher, and the river water has gradually become clearer under the washing of fresh water sources. But the people here haven't changed a bit. In the Alabasta incident 2 years ago, although Cobra was framed by K. Lockdoll. But the people there still had the courage to resist, and even the coalition forces of the rebel army once fought near the capital. The people of Sky Island have been fighting endlessly for hundreds of years in order to fight for their due power and living space. Only people from Wanokuni, for an inexplicable, unknown so-called prophecy, he was willing to be enslaved for decades. Do not. It's not even as simple as being enslaved. Now that Kaido was defeated and the Kazuki family was wiped out, they happily accepted their rule again. He even crowned himself the title of the Emperor of Heaven. Ayu stood behind Dillon and grabbed Dillon's cloak, watching the Wanokuni people gathered from all directions around the river. From 4 to 8 years old is a critical moment to shape a person's 3 views and cognition. And during this time, Ayu has been spent in Greenbit. The current Wanokuni seems so foreign to her. Greenbit's openness, enthusiasm, fairness and everything here seems out of place. Although she was still young, she vaguely understood the intention of her eldest brother. Dillon squatted down and supported Ayu's thin shoulders, looking at her with encouraging eyes. After the elder brother leaves, you have to study hard with teacher Tahir, and I will arrange Vegapunk to teach you scientific knowledge, which is very important. There is no one else around, only Ayu, Tahir, and Ain are here. Dillon glanced at them and said, in addition to breaking free at the soul level, there are 2 very important points to completely control the power of the fruit, one is imagination, and the other is the improvement of cognition. Dillon watched and patted Ayu and stood up again. He looked at Tahir. His divinity has been completed, and the original Tomazamo has lived. The foundation of this world itself is very strong. As long as the direction is right, it may take only a few decades to expand the boundaries of science to an unimaginable level. She glanced at Tahir out of the corner of her eye. Tahir raised the corner of his mouth slightly and did not speak. Your strength also has room for improvement, but that's for the future. Now that you have an extraordinary lifespan, you still have enough time to add knowledge in the days to come. In looked at Ayu with affection in his eyes. Scientific power is matched with devil fruit and the original power system of this world. Ayu has to study hard. Your brother Dillon only got thunder fruit in his 20s. It only took him 10 years to do this. After speaking, In held Chushui's hand slightly tighter. She also knew that once Dillon was gone, the child in front of her would be alone again. No matter how you look at them, they are capable of roaming the stars. After a slight pause, In touched Ayu's head. At that time, everyone will help find the sparkling fruit for you, so that you can reunite with your elder brother as soon as possible. Once Ayu's age is up, if Kizaru always refuses to die. Even at that time, the most powerful players in this sea will all come from Dillon's command. But that doesn't have much to do with Tama herself. Even if the world has returned to peace by then. Reminds me of the original world. No one can do anything about him, but Tahir. Dillon thought about the past. This is a feeling of love and affection. Chapter 199 Your Knife. Hearing In's words, Ayu nodded vigorously. After her parents died in the factory, she was adopted by her master, Tiangashan Fike. And the master told her that one day in the future, a samurai named Kazuki would come to save the country. She worked hard with her master in weaving bamboo hats in the bamboo hat village. No matter how hungry or how cold she was, she struggled to support herself. Until the big brother shows up. She came to the outside world, from the old G5 to the new G5. Everyone loves her sincerely, and Princess Mancherly is her best friend. Although Leo always had a stinky face, he cared about her very much. The eldest brother is very busy, but he will find time to accompany her anyway and teach her some knowledge. And Uncle Tom, Mr. Tahir, and the very scary Mr. Shiryu. Sister Ain. Ayu looked up at Ain. She could feel that Ain's love for her was the deepest. Although she is also very busy, she always takes care of herself like a mother. He will quietly observe whether his clothes fit well, and will strictly ask himself to take medicine when he is sick. Sometimes when the condition is a little more serious, she will immediately hug herself to find Brother Luo or Princess Manchueli. There, Ayu felt what family is and what love is. When he knew that his eldest brother would leave, she felt sad. One night later, Ain came to her room, and when she was about to tuck the quilt up and leave, she called Ain. Sister Ain, are you still asleep? Hearing Ayu's call, Ian sat beside her bed. Brother will leave, won't Sister Ain be sad? Ain froze for a moment, then smiled and touched her little head. Of course I will, not only you and me, but many people will be sad. That, Ayu hesitated for a moment, then why not let the eldest brother stay? Seemingly seeing through Ayu's thoughts, In stroked the bangs on Ayu's forehead and said, because he also has his family. Women's minds are sensitive. After they lost to the bald head, Dylan's words deeply shocked them. That's when Bellmeyer knew it, beyond the stars far away. Maybe someone else is waiting for Dylan to come home. His parents may be very old and don't have much time to wait, but we are still young and we still have enough time. And, he didn't say he wouldn't come back, did he? Ayu pursed his lips tightly and nodded. I believe he will come back. In looked at Ayu lovingly. What a boy. Because there is Ayu, whom he loves the most, he will definitely come to see Ayu after finishing his business. Half a month ago, when Dylan told Ain about his guess and plan, Ain's eyes lit up. After all, Ayu was young, so he was depressed all day thinking that his elder brother was about to leave. In didn't hide from her when he saw her, and told her about Dylan's arrangement for them. From that day on, Ayu studied harder. Must be sure to follow in the footsteps of Big Brother. My lord, the Emperor of Heaven. The capital of flowers. Advertisement. From the gate of the city to the palace at the foot of the mountain, the long street along the way was full of kneeling people. Brother. Looking at the endless long street full of people kneeling, Ayu was still a little apprehensive. Dylan knelt down and picked up Ayu, and walked across the long street. When Dylan walked by, someone boldly looked at Ain. Master Valkyrie. That is. Valkyrie. The woman who asked the question nodded after a moment of hesitation. You are the descendant of Mr. Ryoma, and the new generation of patron saint of Wano-kuni. In sneered, but did not refute. Sure enough, it was the same as what Dylan said. The one in his arms is the master of this country. It's the daughter of the gods. The people around raised their heads and looked into the distance one after another. Their eyes were eagerly looking at the figure in the arms of the Lord of the Heavens. Daughter of God, this country has received the mercy and favor of the gods. That's great. When passing by the city gate, Dylan had already seen it, and the momosuke that was hanging on the city gate had disappeared. Shiryu walked into the main hall after In took Ayu to familiarize himself with the environment. He is not very good at coaxing children. At first he was howling. In order to prevent him from dying too early, we let wild birds peck him while he was being healed. The whole process lasted about 5 days, and then there was really no way. Shiryu showed a look of helplessness on his face. There is no meat all over his body, and he can't be cured. After the wild birds ate him up, we put the bones of Kazuki Oden, Kazuki Sukiyaki and Momosuke together to make firewood and cook a hot pot. Having said that, Shiryu looked up at Dylan with a hint of puzzlement in his eyes. Guys here are scrambling to come over for soup. Dylan shook his head. To be honest, if it wasn't for Ayu's deep nostalgia for this place and the excellent location. He himself wanted to sink Wano-kuni to the bottom of the sea with his own hands. Shiryu looked at Dylan with a smile in his eyes. We will fuse with powerful external forces in the final war. If I fuse him, there is nothing to say, but if he fuses me, he will also fuse me. I will do my best to fight for you. When he was on the Great Glacier, he was easily wounded by the redhead again. Although the killing intent was not aimed at him, it still inevitably shook his heart. No, Shiryu seems to have returned to the time when he just followed Dylan. At that time, although he had strength, he was still far from the top. Shiryu remembered the time when Dylan looked back at him on the long street. The development of abilities has indeed come to an end. On Impel Down, he was consistently pinned by Magellan. Things with Wano-kuni are pretty much over. The next step is to arrange the personnel under his command. Are you sure? What about you? What are your plans? It wasn't until 2 years ago that his power had a qualitative change in that dream. That day, better to be broken in battle than to rust with age. I made a deal with him. After you left, he communicated with me. He said that there was too much difference in will between us. Although our abilities have been developed to a critical point, the mismatch of wills is irreparable. Shiryu was able to defeat Jin with some room left, and with a mismatch of wills. You said that I am your knife, the sharper the better. Me. I talked to him about the war and he was excited. Chapter 200 Raid. Dylan frowned. Shiryu. This sharp sword that I valued and chose from the very beginning. He knew his flaws, so he chose to join that war. He entrusted his life and faith to himself. The starry sky outside the domain should be beautiful, right? Dylan. Who knows? Dylan smiled. Although he has been to surrounding planets, he has not traveled very far. It was also an adventure for him. If I win, I will try to continue to break through, when the time comes. I still want to fight side by side with you. Dylan looked at the calm expression on Shiryu's face and nodded solemnly. I'll wait for you. With the World Summit approaching, the world seems to have come to a standstill. The Supreme Wong Quan contest is about to start. Those countries that were about to make a move are all eagerly waiting for the start of the meeting. The confidence that Mariajoy displayed and her defiant confidence gave them hope again. This time, the evil dragon must be completely pulled down. Better let him die in Mariajoy. In their consciousness, they didn't seem to have considered how the ants would survive if the Dark Dragon, Admiral, really came and started a war between Mariajoy and Celestial Dragons. They are just desperate to wipe out the disruptors of this order. From South Blue's fleet, a burly man stood on deck looking at the towering red line. As this right here, the closer he got to the red line, the more obvious the throbbing in his heart became. There's something weird in it. On the other side, the fleet of the Kingdom of Girona is about to come to the flank of New Marineford. Once on the lift, there is Mariajoy. In the cabin, Camilla and Balmond looked at each other. The two nodded at the same time. It seems that, Sir's prediction is correct. The monsters are sleeping around Mariajoy. Branu, who was standing on the deck, looked serious. He is a herald, and his power is not very strong, so he knows nothing about the power of Camilla and Balmond. Although he was a little puzzled, he still thought that that woman was probably just the Dark Dragon's restraint. As for Mariajoy, on the way, he overheard the plot between the woman and the old man. They want coups in countries during World Summit. But, Branu smiled, he had given advance notice to go down. When the army of the Dark Dragon came, the flags were already ready to give them a head-on blow. It's a redhead. Branu was annoyed at the thought. As the banner bearer, this guy hadn't contacted him for almost 2 months. What the hell is he planning? Why not pass yourself by? And those sleeping gods, what is their choice? A sense of powerlessness came over Branu. He felt abandoned, excluded from the plan. Even if they pass on those banners to guard against the surprise attack of the Dark Dragon, many of them are skeptical. West Blue. Big Glacier. Get ready to go. Advertisement. The redhead stood up and said to Parvati next to him. They're about to start. Parvati thought for a while, based on the information and clues that have been sorted out recently. There must have been some kind of tacit agreement between that guy named Adams Dillon and the 20 Kings. The decisive battle between the two sides will not begin until the pirates are completely wiped out. But at present, there is still a pirate group. Raid. That's right. The red-haired said in a deep voice, that's what he is. He won't keep any promises at all. He didn't come because he wasn't ready yet. But now. The redhead looked at the woman between the newspapers. Queen of Girona. Since his woman has appeared, it means that he is ready. If we go late and the winner is decided between them, then we will lose our only chance. Parvati nodded. There is still a distance from the Great Glacier to Mariajoy, and it will also take time to summon the gods from all over the world. It is always better to prepare in advance than to rush into battle. I'll notify them. Parvati raised her chin towards the Inuit in the distance, and the Inuit took out the phone bug and handed it to her. As the calls were dialed out, gods from all over the world looked in the direction of Mariajoy. A wait that spanned 800 years. Joey boy, without you, do we have a chance? Mariajoy. With the arrival of royal families from various countries, Mariajoy has become more and more lively. But many also noticed some unusual signs. Dragon Palace Kingdom has no one to attend. Greenbit was left unattended. No one from the Kingdom of Chia attended. Not even the royal family of Alabasta has anyone. Alabasta. Those traitors of the Neferutari family, won't they come? As one of the descendants of the original 20 kings, the Alabasta royal family was actually touched by Joey Boye at the end of the war. Although they did not withdraw from the 20 kings, they refused to move into the Red Line after the war. But according to the agreement at the beginning of the formation of the alliance, the world government also cannot attack them. And they seem to have some kind of power. In Pangu City, the people from the CP organization were silent for a while and then said, we searched along the way. Their ship disappeared, and no trace was found. After waving away CP0, the blonde 5 elders said thoughtfully, is that him? Adams Dillon. Probably not. 5 elders sneered while holding the first generation goosh. It seems that we also overestimated his mind. We thought he would touch it directly with force, but we didn't expect him to still try to achieve his goal through these conspiracy methods. He hasn't dealt with Marshal D. Teach yet. What the hell is he waiting for? Maybe they want to surprise us, using Marshal D. Teach as a cover to deceive our sight. Then we go and ask Master I.M. Beneath the void throne, the 5 elders fell to their knees. M stood before the throne and looked down. Don Quixote family, just let them contribute some blood. Yes. After bowing their heads and exiting the void throne, the 5 elders looked at each other. It seems that there is indeed a problem with the Don Quixote family, but their direct royal family is not easy to use directly, which is not in compliance with the rules. Choose some descendants. Their family, HMPH, there has been more than one Huo Mingu in the past few hundred years. From whom? Muscarad. The voice of the 5 elders, with the birthmark on their heads, was impassive. His identity as the banner has been confirmed without a doubt. Since he has shamed his ancestors, let him use his life to atone for his sin. Chapter 201 Disappear. When Camilla boarded the Red Line, the resonance in her heart was even more obvious. It is a voice that cannot be expressed in words. Along the way, Many members of the CP organization were watching her, but she didn't seem to see her. Ha 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 ha, what a beautiful girl, that guy Dylan has a good eye. A wandering voice sounded in the distance. Aramaki, who was lying on the sun chair, looked at Camilla and grinned. Shall we have a drink together? Camilla glanced at Huang Mu lightly and then shook her head. Let's talk again when we have a chance. Green Bull. Although according to the analysis, this guy is a radical general, and he admires Akainu very much. But since Dylan has not contacted him before, it means that Dylan has no intention of joining forces with him or recruiting him. It's really ruthless. Lahahaha. Although the invitation was rejected, Aramaki didn't seem surprised. He lay on the chair and glanced at Camilla mysteriously, then turned his head and closed his eyes and began to doze off. Camilla didn't care either, and continued towards Pangu City under the leadership of Branu. What do you think they think now? In the office on the top floor of G5, Dylan, Tahir, Tom, Shiryu, Zephyr, and Bullet are sitting in front of the desk. No one else spoke, only Zephyr and Tahir stared slightly at the map on the table. If the current time is used, the World Summit will be held soon. I guess everyone thinks that you will raid Mariajoy. Well, the guys hiding in the world have started to move closer to Mariajoy. While some areas are not yet locked down, the East Blue and South Blue revived guys are definitely headed towards Mariajoy. And the Blackbeard pirates also lost track. According to news from Morgan's, there is no trace of the Blackbeard pirates on Hive Island. Teach this guy, a typical speculator, we don't have to go to him, he will deliver it himself. Dylan looked at Luo, Alex, and Belnal standing outside. Get ready, order the fleets all over the New World to close their nets and assemble towards the Hive Island to strangle them. This time, even if there are still fish that slip through the net, the roots of the pirates are almost cut off. The three of Bell and Mel nodded. Greenbit has Zephyr in charge, and there are very few people who can threaten him at present. What about us? Devil Muscular Bullet showed excitement. His duties in G5 are relatively simple, guarding the prison on the first floor. But now it is basically unnecessary. In fact, as long as the G5 executives do not die, even if the door is opened, the prisoners on the first floor may not have the courage to walk out of the prison. We also play disappear. G5's fleet set sail again, heading for the depths of the New World. What is he waiting for? Blackbeard has clearly gone into hiding. The vast ocean, where is he going to find it? The heart of the redhead who rushed to Mariajoy from West Blue also became more and more heavy at this time. Teach, UB ************ D. At present, there are about 4 to 5 camps participating in the war. Mariajoy sat firmly on the Daoyutai to meet the challenge. Dark Dragon, Adams Dylan led G5 and his hidden characters to challenge the throne. Marine's position is unclear, but the relationship between Akainu, Sakazuki and the Dark Dragon has long been known. Plus the original Marine Admiral Kuzan and his relationship. In this way, Marine's top combat power is very likely to become the help of Dark Dragon. Redhead, Shanks disappeared after escaping the Battle of the Sabayati Archipelago. Judging from the fact that they can drive rocks at the Battle of de Reis Rosa, they must still have power. In the above 4 parties, except for Dark Dragon, Mariajoy, and Red Hair, who have a clear stand. Marine's position is not clear. After all, Marine is still an agency under the world government. Advertisement. In addition to them, there are 2 other variables. The Blackbeard Pirates and Revolutionary Army in hiding. In what capacity will they participate? Will Blackbeard team up with the Redhead again? Just like during the Summit War 2 years ago. Or will you wait to reap the benefits? As the G5 fleet set sail, the entire fortress was once again closed. The top senior officers of the G5 disappeared from view. The original location of the Fishman Island. The Blackbeard pirate Danzo is directly below Mariajoy. Thief is the Dark Dragon, easting our patience. The appearance of the Queen of Girona represents a signal for him to move forward. But no one knows how long the war will last. It is not after all a battle between the king's armies that will last for months or even years. The duel between the strong will only be able to decide life and death in a few hours or even less time. Mariajoy is the defense. Dark Dragon is the main attacker. Others are spoilers, so the initiative has always been in Dylan's hands. Despite the insolent smile on his face, Blackbeard's heart was far less relaxed than he made it out to be. He shares the same concerns as the Redhead. If the war ends prematurely, no matter which side wins, they will lose the capital to fight back. They need to find the most sensitive and sticky moment to enter the battlefield. Only then will they have a chance. But judging from the current situation, Dark Dragon is obviously not going to give them this chance. The meeting will be held tomorrow. At that time, Queen Camilla is also invited to take the oath under the throne of the void. World government officials explained the process to Camilla with a strange expression. With his official position, he certainly knew about the upcoming war. He also knew that the young and beautiful woman in front of him belonged to Dark Dragon. The strange thing is that Pangu City didn't give her any additional instructions, as if they didn't know her identity. Thank you. Camilla also looked indifferent, as if she really came to swear an oath. Camilla turned to look at Balmond and smiled after the official backed out. Camilla didn't know much about this information. The next day, the world government official brought a group of entourages to Camilla's residence. Maybe it's just used against us to stimulate him. Follow me. Be my woman. Not necessarily. Hey, that woman. Stop. When the heads of state saw Camilla, they all involuntarily distanced themselves. Are they preparing to activate the national treasure? Balmond blew on the tea in his hand. There are fewer people in the Don Quixote family these 2 days. Camilla stood up and adjusted her breathing slightly. That's the job of the chief of staff, but since Balmond said so. Queen Camilla, please follow me. Just when Camilla was about to enter Pangu City, an arrogant voice sounded behind her. 5 elders really hold their breath. A salivating celestial dragons looked at Camilla with bright eyes. It should be just preparations in advance. According to the previous speculation, if it is just a family, it should be difficult to display the true power of the national treasure. Working overtime. Tired. Makeup at noon. Close black lens bracket chapter 202 exploration. Camilla paused slightly. In the back of the crowd, a celestial dragons leads slaves and stares at Camilla. Come with me. Rob Lucci, standing next to the celestial dragons, looked down. Queen Gerona, the woman of the dark dragon. Camilla ignored the celestial dragons and cast a nonchalant glance at Rob Lucci. Arranged by the 5 elders. Do not. As soon as Rob Lucci spoke, the celestial dragons raised their guns and aimed at Camilla. What about you? Didn't you hear me? Aramaki standing in the distance looked at Camilla with a half smile. How to deal with it? This situation. In this case, of course it is. Camilla raised her arms and unbuttoned the cloak on her chest. Boom. A tall figure jumped up from a distance, and before Rob Lucci could react, Craig landed in front of the celestial dragons. Click. Craig's huge hand shattered the shield of the celestial dragons holding his head. Killed. Wait. Before Rob Lucci could say a word, the head of the celestial dragons exploded like a watermelon. Lahahaha, is there such a guy? Lahahaha. Looking at Craig, who was exuding a terrifying aura, Araki, who was standing in the distance, looked up to the sky and laughed. The kings of various countries who were still gloating and watching around looked shocked and began to back away. Crazy. Crazy. Before the dark dragon arrived, they dared to do such a thing. Or, that man has already arrived. Green Bull, haven't you fulfilled your duty yet? Rob Lucci turned his head and glanced at the Green Bull. It is his duty to guard the holy place. But that guy, pretty much watched the celestial dragons get killed. Ah, it's really nerve-wracking. Brother Sakazuki won't give me a positive answer again. Huang Mu scanned the surroundings, the terrified slaves and the royal families of various countries. Those angry dragons and CP0. And that big guy. That kind of monster, he can't win. Sebastian, who was standing among the crowd, looked around with a smile on his face. Except for his own people, most of the royal families of the franchise countries were almost hostile. Fair enough. It turned out that more and more CP0 members came from all directions. But Camilla and Craig didn't care at all. They still stood where they were, as if waiting for something. Rob Lucci glanced at Araki, who was still motionless, and then glanced in the direction of the Hall of Power. It seems that this is the choice of Marine. They chose G5, or Dark Dragon, Adams Dillon. Get rid of them. Dozens of CP0 members surrounding them disappeared at the same time, and appeared in front of Camilla and the others the next moment. Neither Camilla nor Craig moved, and Balmond, who was standing next to Camilla, raised his hand slightly. The mist appeared out of thin air, and the CP0 that was moved by, shaving, was instantly bound in place. Facing the sudden change, the CP0s all stared wide-eyed. That old man. He is also capable. Balmond's finger moved slightly, and the bodies of those CP0 members wrapped in mist instantly turned blood red. It's the fruit of mist. It's Logia. Rob Lucci's expression changed, and the woo-woo fruit was very special. There are no water fruits in this world, and the fruits related to the water element are very rare and powerful. Advertisement. As the blood vessels in the CP0s burst, they all fell to the ground and lost their vitality before they could get close to Camilla. Is it only to this extent? Camilla glanced at the direction of the Hall of Power, and then at the surrounding royal families. Now, you corrupt rulers of the old days, be judged. The dense fog cleared up again, and the surrounding royal family and celestial dragons showed surprised expressions. What are they going to do? Ready to kill everyone here. Eng. A long howl sounded from outside Mariajoy. National treasure activated. A celestial dragon's face showed joy at first, and then he turned his head to look cruelly at Camilla and her party. You untouchables from the lower world, dare to attack the creator, you will know. The lingering mist changed in the air for a moment and rushed towards the celestial dragons in an instant. Boom. Rob Lucci, who has turned into a leopard, stands in front of celestial dragons and uses armament hockey to resist the rushing fog. During the war, please leave temporarily. Humph. Celestial dragons stood there unmoved. The national treasure has been activated, no one can hurt me. Click. Blood gushed from the celestial dragon's ears and nose as the air mask ruptured. Rob Lucci looked at Balmond on the opposite side angrily, and just like that, killed a celestial dragons under his protection. Seeing this, the other celestial dragons all exclaimed. Boom. A lizard-like creature fell from the sky. Goo, goo. It made a strange cry from its mouth. The celestial dragons stopped running when they saw it fall, and they pointed at Camilla and shouted. Kill them. Kill them. The moment the lizard arrived, the royal families of all countries dispersed in a rush. Although many of them also brought guards, the fight just now was beyond their reach, not to mention the appearance of this monster. Escape Mariajoy first and wait for the victory of world government. They are still the franchise kings, with great power. There was still no movement in the direction of the Hall of Power, and the sudden big lizard stared at Camilla with its vertical pupils. Swish. A pink tongue shot out of its mouth. The lightning-fast tongue went straight for Camilla. Huh, do you want to test? The 5 elders who had been staying here all this time were gone, and so were the guards. Before Balmond's mist approached the gate, a huge shield blocked the turbulent mist. Hold head high. As soon as Balmond lifted his finger, the mist inside the lizard exploded, cutting its huge body into pieces. The fog rolled back and formed a barrier in front of Camilla. Balmond watched the lizard taller than the house move its fingers indifferently. Laugh, laugh, much stronger than jailer beast. Balmond's sleeves bulged, and the mist in the sky began to wrap in the direction of the Hall of Power. The mist penetrated from the lizard's snout and skin into its body, and then bloodstains began to appear on its body. The lizard's head fell from its torso as the bloodstain on its neck lit up. Break down. The lizard's huge body began to twist wildly, and the fear of death came from within its body. Hall of Power. On the shield, an expressionless face slowly opened its eyes. Slap. The struggle lasted only a few short breaths, and the bloodstains on the lizard's body became more and more obvious. But, also very general. Chapter 203 Cause and Effect and Rules. Shield. Balmond looked at the huge, grotesque shield and the face on it. It should be something like shield fruit, which is not in the illustrated book. It seems that it was swallowed by the blood factor and became a slave. Behind the Hall of Power. Beneath the void throne stood dozens of celestial dragons, but the throne was empty. What are you doing? Are you rebelling? Many members of the Don Quixote family were escorted under the throne, and they looked angrily at the 5 elders standing in the middle. You have enjoyed the power brought by your ancestors for hundreds of years, but you have repeatedly provoked the throne. Now, it is time for you to redeem. 5 elders, holding the first-generation ghost, glanced at the 2 Don Quixote family members on the ground who died because their lives were drained. Several vine-like things inserted into the bodies of members of the Don Quixote family from behind the throne in an instant. A strange light glowed on the vines, and the members of the Don Quixote family were rapidly aging under the light. The entire void throne hall began to flicker with faint light. Adams Dillon, if he's so confident, let his people die here. Outside the door of the Hall of Power, behind the shield, 2 giant snakes that were originally carved on the huge stone pillars began to slowly wake up. Seeing the giant snake wake up, Rob Lucci raised his eyebrows and flashed behind him. No one paid him any attention, and no one stopped him. Camilla smiled when she saw the giant snake waking up, and she turned her head slightly to look at Craig. It's your turn. Craig nodded, and slowly spread his golden wings behind his back. His body, which was originally more than 5 meters high, skyrocketed, and his gnarled muscles shone like gold and iron. Woo! With the loud sound of breaking through the air, Craig came to the door of the Hall of Power, and the shield enlarged again, blocking Craig's body. Boom! The golden fist hit the shield, and the surrounding air was rippling. Feeling the force rebounding from the shield, Craig turned his head and glanced at Camilla. Can break through, but wastes energy. Camilla nodded slightly, and then a flash of light welled up in her blue eyes. The level of ability. Yes, of course that's just my opinion. 15 years ago, Dillon, who had not yet left East Blue, discussed with Balmond, Craig, and Camilla the strength of the Devil Fruit ability. All abilities are divided into strengths and weaknesses. In the eyes of the world, many similar abilities are also divided into upper and lower levels. For example, Golden Lion's Lion Fruit, which has lower level fruits. Flying Fruit. As a top scholar in O'Hara, Balmond's understanding of the Devil Fruit illustrated book can be regarded as the top group of people in the world. Well, there are some other fruits that have this situation. The application of some fruits is indeed very narrow, and it is very likely that the development is not in place, but what we want to say is that they are divided by the attributes of the fruits themselves. How do you think the strengths and weaknesses are divided among the known devil fruits? Advertisement. Should it be the strongest phantom beast? Dillon shook his head. Phantom beasts are a special case and are out of the scope of the discussion. We only summarize them with zone, paramesha, and logia. Balmond pondered for a while. That should be logia. After all, logia can be turned into elements, and most of them have extraordinary attack power and unique element attributes. Craig has never been good at thinking about this, so he didn't speak, and Camilla seemed to agree with Balmond. But Dillon shook his head. This is a misunderstanding, or a misunderstanding that is only considered in terms of attack power. Zone. This is undoubtedly the weakest line, because it can only allow the user to increase strength, physical fitness, and possess the biological characteristics of a specific animal. Simply put, it is still at the physical level. Paramesha. Some can change the characteristics of the body, some can change the performance of other objects, and even use their own abilities to give other people and objects unique characteristics. Logia, in addition to its own elementalization and elemental attribute attacks, is more about being able to use elemental characteristics beyond the ordinary to fight, such as moving in an adaptable environment, changing the geographical environment, climate, etc. But today it's about 2 other concepts. Cause and rule. Cause and effect. Dillon recalls the fruit of his memory. Shadow fruit. After cutting off the enemy's shadow, once the enemy is illuminated by the sun, no matter who it is or what creature it is, it will be melted by the sun. A childlike fruit that becomes a toy after being touched. Although the self-awareness is still there, it cannot control the body, and most importantly, the whole world will forget the existence of this person. Lucky fruit. You can absorb the other party's good luck by touching the other party's body. The above fruits are almost unsolvable on the premise that the capable person is not defeated. There are also fruits such as meatball fruit, split fruit, and ghost fruit. These are more dependent on the development direction and imagination of the capable person. Cause and effect are almost irreversible except for defeating the capable person. This is its terrifying aspect. But there is another thing above this. Rule. Even a learned man like Balmond fell into deep thought. Space and time. The bearded five elders glanced at Balmond standing beside Camilla. It is the power that can modify the rules. Maybe it's that person. I'm not feeling well, I'm working hard. Close black lens bracket. Five elders stared at the projected picture and was stunned. It's O'Hara's record. The cracked air slowly healed after the shield fell to the ground, and the killed shield that was torn apart by the space slowly turned into a middle-aged man. Instead, cracks appeared in the space around it. Space fruit. Where did she come from? It should not be recorded in the devil fruit illustration book in the world. There was a trace of panic in the shield's lifeless eyes, and as the crack enlarged, the shield fell to the ground with a bang. He was a historian as famous as Clover back then. Balmond. I can't give a systematic answer to this question, but you have to remember that all power related to space and time is extremely powerful, and it is truly close to the power of God. The Void Throne Hall. Cracks appeared on the shield in front of Balmond. It's not that it's broken itself. Snap. After the space was completely closed, Craig looked again at the two giant snakes that were coiled in place. Chapter 204 Collision. The redhead and Parvati, who were lurking on Mariajoy's flank, exchanged glances as they sensed the breath coming from afar. They started. Do not. Parvati shook her head. It's fake. Fake. The redhead looked over at Mariajoy. Those auras just now were already very strong. Is this level still fake? Parvati didn't look at the frail banner bearer next to her. From just now, there was indeed some fighting breath erupting there, but it was far from being comparable to the monsters. The redhead's mood became more and more weird and crazy. Before the start of the Sabayati Archipelago battle, he was also the world-famous Emperor of the Sea. In addition to having a strong lineup known as the Iron Wall Pirates, he also controlled underground forces unimaginable by the world. He can even communicate directly with the five elders. But all of this disappeared after the battle of the Sabayati Archipelago. Especially the battle of de Ries Rosa, which made him completely lose the means of competition, even the woman in front of him. She is not something she can control, the other party just regards him as a trivial intelligence agent. The most important thing is, the power he is proud of is now far behind the world's top level. Perhaps feeling the increasingly disordered atmosphere of the red hair, Parvati said after a moment of silence. Do you know what the difference is between us and the monsters? What is it? This question has always plagued redheads as well. After Parvati learned that the representative power of the dark dragon is element, her shocked expression cannot be concealed. But for the national treasure, Parvati also has a deep fear. Are they different in nature? Our strength is actually inferior to that of a monster. The redhead froze at Parvati's first words, but then he was relieved. Of course it is not as good, otherwise it should have won 800 years ago. Our power is more changeable, because we are still human, so we can try to change the way of fighting through our own thinking and imagination, but monsters, their power is more pure. Even though the war was imminent, Parvati still showed a trace of disappointment that could not be concealed. This war is difficult, because we don't have Joey Boy, we don't have Wanzu, we don't have ancient weapon. Taking chestnuts from the fire is far worse than confrontation between the two armies. The gap between the identity of the speculator and the identity and strength of the opponent is insurmountable. Redhead's mood hit rock bottom, but then a touch of madness appeared in his eyes again. The person who has been secretly supporting me at the top of the world government hasn't contacted me for a long time. Has he even given up on me? Treachery. Parvati lowered her eyes slightly, ready when the sound of the drum of liberation died away. Joey Boy, let's make a big fuss. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Snapped. As Craig spread his arms, the giant snake in his hand split into two parts. After throwing the serpent's body aside, Craig looked at the tall arches of the Hall of Power. Tread, tread. Craig didn't go forward, because the two giant stone beasts standing at the gate also began to wake up. Camilla glanced at the two who were covered in gray and looked at Balmond. Balmond shook his head. There is no such creature in the records, it should be the experimental body of the Lunaria tribe thousands of years ago. There was a deep roar from the mouths of the giant beasts, and the blue-gray fireworks blazed on their bodies. Craig pulled out the superalloy gloves Dylan had reforged for him, slipped them on, and walked slowly towards the behemoth. In the sky above Mariajoy, Dylan and Tahir sat among the clouds. The redheads are hiding over there. Where is Teach? Advertisement. He won't show up so early, he's more tolerant than the redhead, old turtle. For the hope that one might exist, Teach risked his life as a teenager to board Whitebeard's ship to wait for the dark fruit. But now, it is obviously not the time to pick the fruit. The surroundings of the clouds are covered by Dylan's magnetic field, and outsiders have no way of sensing their existence. Are they all right? Even though Craig seemed to be doing well in the fight just now, and Camilla hadn't even made a serious move yet, Tahir still showed a trace of dignity. In a battle of this level, the slightest carelessness will result in death. Dylan shook his head to indicate that it's okay. Balmond's combat power can only be regarded as ordinary, and there is still a gap between ordinary Admiral. But Camilla and Craig are completely different. Space fruit. The only thing I can be sure of after I came to this world is the approximate location of thunder fruit. Thunder fruit is also very powerful. Elementalization, flight, hardening, electricity, magnetism, magnetic fields, and electromagnetic force. Only this fruit is the safest to obtain, and he is confident in developing it to ultimate. The space fruit is certainly powerful, but his concept reserve may not be enough to support him to develop the space fruit to that extent. There is no strongest, only the most suitable for you. The Void Throne Hall. 5 elders looked at Craig, who was fighting the giant beast on the screen, with solemn expressions. This is just an unknown character. Da da, da da. There was a sound of footsteps above the Void Throne. I am looked down at the dried up Don Quixote family members and then at the 5 elders. It's just this level, it's not enough to attract him. Listen to your orders. The 5 elders fell to their knees when they heard Im's footsteps. They didn't even dare to look directly at the figure on the throne. Let all ethnic groups contribute more descendants to come here. After raising them for 800 years, isn't today what we are waiting for? Yes, the descendants of the 20 kings. They are ugly, ignorant, arrogant and domineering. But the 5 elders have been doing nothing about it. A group of raised pigs will not understand their own fate. They seem to hold unlimited power, but they themselves do not know that their lives are doomed from the moment they are born. Become nutrients, activate national treasures, and wake up the monster sleeping in the red line. The 5 elders raised their heads and stood up again when the voice from the throne died away. Those materials contain the location of many treasures, a summary of many cultivation methods of different races, and many development directions and cultivation conjectures of devil fruit. Thousands of celestial dragons. Vic, what do you mean? Do you want to go to CP headquarters? Rob Lucci's pupils shrank. CP headquarters has a lot of top secret information, and he does plan to collect and hide some of it in exchange for a chance of survival. 1/3 is already a very large number, close to thousands of people. Outside the Hall of Power, Rob Lucci was just about to flash out when he was stopped by a figure who was almost the same size as him. Vic looked at Rob Lucci. I've already been there. Rob Lucci looked sullenly at Vic, the most gifted man in CP9's 800-year history and now the chief of CP0. Rob Lucci looked at the person in front of him, the CP0 captain who has been stationed with Greenbit all the year round. Do you think I'm inferior to you? Just an ordinary captain. Vic lifted the mask from his face and threw it aside, revealing his handsome face. Vic, notify all ethnic groups and ask them to send 1/3 of their offspring over here. Do you want to stop me too? Why? Chapter 205 Assembly. Hearing Vic's words, Rob Lucci's face showed a solemn look. Although Vic is his subordinate in terms of rank, in fact he has very little contact with Vic. Vic was praised by 5 elders for his deal with Adams Dillon shortly after his promotion to CP0 and he was specifically put in contact with Adams Dillon. In the past 10 years, Vic has rarely returned to the CP headquarters in Mariajoy. The world's impression of him is very vague. But since he said so himself. Humanoid Rob Lucci stared at Vic, claws on his fingers popping out, but he didn't strike first. It is the nature of cats to look for opportunities first. Vic, already covered in armament hockey, looks at Rob Lucci. This killing machine has been praised in the world government since more than 10 years ago. Shave, shave. The figures of the two disappeared at the same time, and the next moment they appeared together in the air. Finger pistol Huang Lian. The dense finger pistol turned into a petal shape and stabbed towards Vic. Vic stepped on the air with his right foot, and his body disappeared again. Impossible. Rob Lucci's right arm looked into the empty space in front of him. Without the help of rebound. Can this be achieved by simply stepping on the air? A gust of wind hit. Rob Lucci had no time to turn around. The tail behind him was thrown out like an iron whip. Tempest kick leopard tail. The tail swirled in the air, but there was still no sense of impact. Rob Lucci took advantage of the situation and bowed to the ground. Finger pistol thorns. Boo. The sharp finger pistol pierced through the body, and a piece of Madara's bloodline appeared on Rob Lucci's left chest. Have you avoided it? Vic's body appeared, and the attack just now was aimed at the opponent's heart. As a partner of G5, he also has the same fighting style as G5. Simple and direct, straight to the lifeline. Rob Lucci didn't have time to be surprised, because Vic's body disappeared again. But this time, even in the form of a leopard, his vision can no longer keep up, and he can only barely perceive that the other party is around with his sense of hearing and smell. Paper arts wushin. Rob Lucci's body shrank rapidly, his speed increased again and he disappeared in place. This is his unique move, which compresses the body through return of life, which not only saves physical energy, but also greatly increases the speed of movement. Can't catch. The moving Rob Lucci is desperately trying to catch Vic's breath. As long as he locks on the opponent, he can instantly restrain the opponent with his iron whip-like tail, and then perform that trick. Snapped. There was a touch at the tail, but then Rob Lucci felt a sense of crisis in his heart. Vic grabbed his tail. Finger pistol arc light. Snapped. The huge tail was cut off by the roots, and Rob Lucci's balance ability dropped instantly after losing the tail. The moment he landed, Vic flashed in front of him. Rob Lucci aimed both fists at Vic. Profound Truth 6 King Spear. Profound Truth Reincarnation Spear. 10 years ago, when he was at the Great Glacier, Vic saw Dylan tearing the ice continent apart with his own hands. There, Dylan personally taught the three of them how to master the advanced application of armed colors. I said don't stick to a certain form. Except for rotation, can't it spread? Can't penetrate, can't vibrate, can't impact, can't condense. What Dylan said at the time opened a door for them. Puff. A mouthful of blood spewed out, and the impact of the Six Kings spear was completely crushed by the opponent. Followed by a huge tearing force. Vic ducked behind Rob Lucci and put his left hand on the top of his head, his right index finger on the back of his head. Boo. Chi Jin passed through Rob Lucci's head, Rob Lucci's eyes stared, and then lost his spirit. Vic looked into the distance after Rob Lucci was dealt with. Although his strength has made great progress, the core of this battle is still not something he can participate in. He turned and headed towards CP's headquarters. There are still a lot of important materials there. If they can be handed over to that person after the war, it will be very helpful to restore peace to the world. There's very little I can do, but it doesn't stop me from fighting for it. Craig, who solved the goalkeeper behemoth, did not move forward. The two sides are still in the tentative stage before the decisive battle. They are still waiting. If, sir, is not wrong in his prediction, at the center of Mariajoy, nearly half of the red lines are sleeping monsters. Just now these can only be regarded as small fish and shrimp. In the little garden behind the void throne. Advertisement. I.M. stretched out her hand, and a butterfly rested on her slender finger. Joey Bowie, you were wrong. She sighed and picked up a newspaper. That's a photo of Dylan stomping on Monkey D. Luffy 2 years ago in Marineford. Hey, the butterfly flew away, and I.M. put down the newspaper in his hand and looked at the sky. Inside the void throne hall, thousands of celestial dragons rushed towards the door with horror on their faces. But the whizzing vines pierced their bodies in an instant. Then they shriveled down. The light in the entire void throne hall became even weirder and brighter. What about the immediate royal families? Already gathering. They are not the same as collateral. They will come soon. The blood of the direct royal family can provide even more pure energy, especially after gathering the life of all of them. Those monsters that cannot be controlled will begin to wake up. 5 elders with birthmarks on their heads looked at the fallen celestial dragons and said indifferently, activate the second floor. Those tethered to the surface were clearly no match for Adams Dillon's minions. At least so far, the woman just made a simple shot. A huge roar sounded around Mariajoy. Mariajoy began to shake slightly. Craig straightened his body and looked into the distance. Stronger aura began to emerge from all around. Mariajoy in the distance. Redhead and Parvati remained unmoved. Are they here? Coming. With Parvati's answer, a passage appeared in the air before their eyes. A group of people came out from inside. Everyone was scattered around and it took a little time. The first one to come out was an old man, and as the crowd filed out, Parvati nodded to them one by one. Is this the contemporary banner bearer? The old man glanced at the red hair and then at Parvati. Although hockey is good, but, yes, after 800 years, the 20 kings have collected most of the divine fruits in this world. Many of our comrades in arms cannot return. The comrades who died in the battle, they should have buried their will. They agreed to be reborn after 800 years. But according to the redhead's description, let alone a complete awakening in these years. Many divine fruits never appeared at all. All of them were imprisoned after being captured by the 20 kings. Apart from the sun god fruit, there are only a handful of divine fruits that appear in the world. Has it become so severe? The old man stroked the long beard on his chest and looked at the red hair. Then, what are the existing divine fruits? After recalling for a while, the redhead said, there were still some parts before, but they were all beheaded by Adams Dillon. Now it is known that only the Nine-Tails Fox and the Buddha are left. Are they awake? The redhead shook his head. No, and they are all in the hostile camp. In addition, Adams Dillon seems to have phantom beasts. Phantom beast. It's what you call the divine fruit. The red-haired man looked at the old man and said, the fur tribe under his command will grow 9 tails after turning into a human and beast shape, and will use purple flames. A black demon who can use powers similar to hell. Tamamome and Ashura. Parvati looked at the red hair with some doubts. The red hair did not tell her this information before. The redhead didn't explain too much, because he didn't know what the fruit of Sky Fox, Tahir and Rain, Shiryu was. The person hiding in the world government didn't tell him either. Ashura, it's not on the same side as us, but Tamamome. There was a trace of heaviness on the old man's face. How is the strength of that fur tribe? No one knows, because he is actually the number 2 man under Adams Dillon. 2 years ago, the strength was mediocre, but now there is no way to know. During the Summit War, 2 years ago, Tahir was injured by Whitebeard's targeted Conqueror's impact. But in the next 2 years, almost no one saw him make a formal shot again. The only thing he knows is that during the Battle of the Sabayati Archipelago, Sky Fox, Tahir and Black Arm, Zephyr teamed up to capture his Cadres and World Destroyer, Burndy Val alive. Whether it is wounded or defeated, it is not an exaggeration to even kill. Capture alive is the scariest thing. Because that means that the strength gap between the two sides is huge. Tamamome betrayed us. It's not just him. In Parvati's frightened anger, the old man shook his head. Kassan, he didn't come either, he said. We were all wrong. Chapter 206 Messenger. Kassan. There is also the Elephant Master. Someone next to him interjected in a low voice. We can't communicate with the elephant master, and the fur tribe has left. Parvati was a little lost for a moment. Poseidon, the Fishman Island represented by Poseidon, the elephant master and the fur tribe on his back. These alien races who made an agreement with them in the previous era all chose to remain silent or wait and see. Even their partners, Yu Zhao and Kasong, also chose to go against each other. Parvati thought of Tamamo, that gentle and affectionate man, full of wisdom and vision. Kassan, the solid and reliable mighty warrior from the East Blue. One by one they chose other paths. Dozens of people gathered together in silence. Although they were powerful, there was still an insurmountable power gap compared to the two sides that were fighting over there. Wait, Parvati sighed. After the monster wakes up, see if you can still find a chance. If there is really no chance. Let's go help that young man. No way, Redhead shouted subconsciously. If he wins, we also have no way out. None of the others spoke, they looked at Parvati silently. The woman who had been with Joey Boye since before the war started. I'm not asking for your opinion, Parvati turned his head to look at the redhead indifferently. You performed the task in a mess, do you think I really didn't do anything after I woke up? The world is changing, that young man. Parvati sighed and looked at the other partners. He may be an unprecedented god of nature. And he is likely to be even stronger than that. The others nodded together. Some information about the Dark Dragon has been told to them by their guardians through various channels. That's also. Click. Before the red-haired could say anything, a curly-haired woman standing opposite him stretched out her hand and grabbed his neck. Your mind has been blinded. Blinded by hatred and desire, and I suspect that you are not an orthodox, Palm Bannerman. What's the meaning? The moment the curly-haired woman made a move, the redhead didn't even have time to react, and when his neck was pinched, he completely lost the ability to resist. Lin, why do you say that? The woman named Lin pinched the redhead and turned to look at Parvati. His bloodline has the breath of 20 kings. He belongs to the direct royal family. Everyone, including Parvati, changed their faces. Lin's ability can't go wrong, so. Thinking of Joey Boy's reincarnation being cut off, and thinking of the divine fruit, left by many partners being captured and imprisoned by the 20 kings, Parvati looked at the red hair coldly. Are you a descendant of 20 kings? I don't know, the redhead said with red eyes. He's been on Roger's boat for as long as he can remember, and all Roger says is that he was picked up with Buggy. Roger himself doesn't seem to know who his parents were or where he was born. After becoming the Bannerman, Roger once told him that someone in Mariajoy was also supporting them, but Roger didn't know who that person was. Until about 10 years ago, shortly after he captured the Nika fruit and returned to the Grand Line, he received a mysterious invitation. Invitation from Mariajoy. At that time, the backbone of his pirate group had already formed, and his strength was gradually approaching the top players at that time. At that time, he was very high-spirited and vowed to fulfill Captain Roger's legacy and welcome Joey Bowie's return. But that mysterious message made him unable to refuse, because the person on the other side said, Advertisement. Come to Mariajoy and accept your true calling. An ominous premonition rose in the redhead's heart, and he went to Mariajoy alone. 5 elders received him personally. You did something wrong. 5 elders, who was holding the first-generation ghost, said to him straight to the point. At that time, the 5 elders did not know that the red hair had become the banner-bearer of the Tinder lineage. In their impression, the red hair Shanks was the emissary personally arranged by Mr. IM to Roger after the Valley of Gods incident. It wasn't until Adams Dillon told them through the phone bug that the Nika fruit was taken away by the red hair that they realized that there was something wrong with the messenger they had cultivated secretly but had no positive contact with. The redhead looked at 5 elders with some doubts. Although the other party's attitude was a little annoyed, it was not hostile. We sent Griffin to you and supported you secretly for so long. We didn't let you fight us. 5 elders, with a birthmark on his head, crossed his hands and looked at the redhead. There is no need to pursue the past, but now, you have to accept your mission. Contribute to your family and maintain the balance of the sea. After leaving Lu Li from Hongtu Dalu, Hongfa was completely confused. Is he celestial dragons? Although 5 elders did not specify which branch he belonged to, there is no doubt that he must be a descendant of one of the 20 kings. Is he the banner bearer, determined to overthrow the world government and guide Joey Bowie back? The distraught redhead began to doubt his own life, and he vaguely noticed something was wrong. Roger Pirates. Like his red hair pirates, it is a small pirate group, although they have many vassals under their banner. But their main ship has always been small in number. Why would such an elite pirate ship raise 2 babies? Captain Roger and Whitebeard are different. What Whitebeard wants is family, while what Captain Roger wants is freedom. Him and Buggy, he's celestial dragons. Where's Buggy? Is he too? But what role does the captain play in this? Do not. The red hair after returning to New World dispelled the distracting thoughts in his mind. I am who I am. I'm Redhead Shanks. He looked in the direction of the red line. The corrupt world government is my enemy. And they still don't know their identity as the banner bearer. Maybe they can take advantage of this. After listening to the redhead's statement, Parvati nodded towards Lin. Rin released her right hand from the redhead's neck. You mean, the current power only tells you that you are the messenger, arranged by them, to the sea. That's it. The red-haired roared in a low voice. The moment he was caught by Lin just now, he truly experienced the fear of death. This feeling. He's been through it a few times before, twice with Adam's Dylan and once with Garp. Your identity is so sensitive, does the other party not suspect you? According to the intelligence and information analysis they collected recently, the man named Gul D. Roger completed the only circumnavigation of the world in 800 years, and won the title of One Piece. Such a person, even the ants on his boat, should be closely monitored and controlled. Maybe it's inertial thinking that made their judgment fall into a misunderstanding. The old man who opened the passage just now said, or they were deceived too. Chapter 207, the third floor. Cheated by who? The old man pondered for a moment and then looked at the red hair. Can you confirm that the so-called five elders are really the supreme powers? The redhead was stunned for a moment and then nodded. As far as I know, that's true. The long-bearded old man shook his head and looked at Parvati. But I don't think it should be. Either they are limited to the direct royal family, or there are people above them. The redhead was also stunned. Back in West Blue, the Dark Dragon had the strength to kill them, but refrained from doing so in an uncharacteristic way. During the Summit War, apparently the world government also played a role in making them escape Marineford. Later, when Rayleigh took Luffy to Marineford to ring the bell. And Rox. Although Rox accepted his plan, he could clearly feel that Rox had just reached an agreement with someone and was not really controlled. So who is the man who controls him? All of these. It all came to an abrupt end after the De Reese Rosa incident. He lost his authority, he lost his strength. The reincarnation of Joey Poi was cut off, and the fire dissipated. And Mariajoy hasn't defended him since. The last time he was taken away by that CP9 member in the Battle of Sabayati Archipelago. It seems that you, no matter which side you are, you have failed. The bearded old man stared at the redhead. Hearing this sentence, the red hair suddenly looked at him. His whole life. Most of the time it's smooth sailing. I have lived on a top pirate ship in the world since I was a child. What I came into contact with were all the scenery and characters that ordinary people can't even imagine in their lifetime. He is a crew member of One Piece, inheriting Joey Boy's will in the straw hat that symbolizes inheritance. He is the banner bearer who delivers the fire. He is the famous Emperor of the Sea. He is also a descendant of the Creator, the direct royal family of celestial dragons. The old man didn't pay attention to him anymore, and Lin next to him frowned slightly when she saw the stern look in the red-haired eyes, and then said to him coldly, "You'd better restrain your thoughts in your heart. At this point, it's hard to say, there is not much difference between having you and not having you." Parvati next to her didn't stop Lin this time. This banner bearer has hidden too many things from himself, so he is not worthy of trust. Take him, maybe it will be useful later. After thinking for a while, Parvati said something to Lin, and then nodded to another person. A thin young man walked out of the crowd, he nodded to the red-haired heart, and a green light sank into the red-haired body. This is my toxin, what to do, you understand. The redhead didn't care about the toxin that had entered his heart. After calming down, he looked at Parvati and asked, "Are you really going to help him?" "You made a mistake." Parvati looked a little alienated at this time. "Of course we want to go our own way to save the world, but it's clear that in the last few decades you've let the whole plan fall short. Do you think we're you? Twisted and crazy for personal honor and disgrace and grievances?" Standing across from the red hair, Lin had a short sword in her waist. She looked at the red hair with some disgust, and then Parvati said, "Our purpose is to fill the world with laughter and let all races live in peace. What do you think we are gathered together for? In the current situation, we don't have many choices, because you let 800 years of accumulation and preparation go to waste. Then, we should choose the relatively correct side." Lin clasped her right hand on the handle of the knife and stared at the red hair. Why do you think we are ignorant idiots who can be manipulated and ordered by you?" Advertisement. Dylan in the sky smiled. Red hair. What a mess. Do you want to save face all day long with a big face all over the world, and you still want to brush your face at the last moment? Mariajoy. As the ground shook, several figures slowly walked out of a giant arch in the distance of Pengu City. Camilla, Craig, and Balmond looked in the direction of the arch at the same time. A woman with long hair reaching the ground, a one-eyed golden wolf, and a white-haired baboon. Camilla examines them. There was no emotion in their eyes, as if they were some kind of machine. Save energy. After Camilla finished speaking, her body disappeared first. Huang Mu, who was standing on the top of a high-rise building in the distance, saw Camilla's body disappear, first held his breath to feel it, and then showed a somewhat surprised expression. What ability is this? Even the breath of life disappeared. Dylan, you guys have prepared a lot. The three figures at the archway disappeared at the same time. Craig, who had transformed into a human and animal form, appeared behind Balmond immediately. Golden lines appeared on his pair of thick arms, and the wings on his back shone like a blade. Boom. Just as Craig resisted the attacks of the golden wolf and the white baboon, the long-haired woman came to Craig in an instant. At some point, she had a spear in her hand, and the tip of the spear shone with a cold light. The spear shot straight for Craig's face like a lion majesty spitting out a message. But Craig didn't seem to notice. The moment the spear tip touched Craig, a ring opened in front of him, and the spear pierced into the ring, but did not penetrate it. The look of Aramu on the roof was even more strange. Space ability. Door fruit. The woman's castration continued, her upper body was submerged in the ring, and just as her body was about to withdraw, the ring suddenly disappeared. Silently. It seems that Adams Dillon has been planning this for a long time. That woman not only got the space fruit, it is very likely that she has also broken free from the shackles of the national treasure. You use him to erase the lights. What's the result? Her body was cut in two. They understand better the strength of the monsters awakened by the national treasure. The woman's lower body fell to the ground, and not far away, her upper body fell out of the air. The Void Throne Hall. Is this the character you have supported for nearly 10 years? Sacrifice all descendants and activate the third level of national treasure. He is more destructive than lights. They are the true descendants of the 20 kings, with extremely pure blood. One of the celestial dragons looked at the 5 elders indifferently. A middle-aged woman with long crimson hair stood on the flank of the throne, her hands folded on her belly. 5 elders looked at the celestial dragons with the same indifferent look. Pay attention to your attitude, we are not submitting to you. 5 elders and all direct celestial dragons looked towards the void throne. Hundreds of direct royal families looked at the projected screen with surprised expressions on their faces. Celestial dragons was about to reprimand 5 elders with anger on their faces, but there was a sound of soft footsteps behind the void throne. Chapter 208 Yokozuna. The red-haired woman left after delivering the message. The celestial dragons who rebuked the 5 elders fell silent for a moment, all the offspring. Although the blood relationship between those descendants and them is already very thin, their mission is at this moment. But after all, they have a common ancestor, and such a large-scale sacrifice is undoubtedly a humiliation to their authority. That's what they do, and that in itself is their raison d'etre. The 5 elders in the hat gave him a nonchalant glance, then nodded to the bloody CPX below. Look at what you've done. Another direct line, celestial dragons, gave 5 elders a cold look. After finishing Adams Dillon, you will also be impeached. The 5 elders ignored the direct celestial dragons, and they were not in a good mood at the moment. There are only 3 people, and they have already begun to feel oppressive. What about the rest? What about Adams Dillon? How far has his strength reached? The 5th floor. Do not. The monsters on the 4th floor alone are almost uncontrollable. The 5 elders with the birthmark on their heads nodded towards the 5 elders holding the first generation goosh. The 5 elders holding the first generation goosh nodded slightly and walked out of the gate. More and more monsters came out from the archway opposite the Hall of Power, and Craig's body began to emit heat. Just when a rhino was about to rush to Craig, several vines emerged from the rhino's feet and entangled its 4 feet. Ha 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 ha. I don't know what Brother Sakazuki thinks, but I made my own decision. Araki's back grew a pair of wings made of intertwined leaves. He swooped down from the roof, stood beside Craig and looked at Camilla on the flank. Remember what you promised me, beautiful young lady. Camilla glanced at him and nodded. The whole Mariajoy became full of vitality in an instant as the barren grazing fell, and the vines wrapped around the rhino's 4 feet pierced its belly, and then the rhino slowly shriveled up. Hey, your ability looks so evil. An excited voice sounded from a distance, and Shiryu and Bullet came slowly from a distance. It should be your ability that is more evil. Ha 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 ha. An emerald green praying mantis waved a sickle and rushed towards Wangmu. Dozens of vines rose around Wangmu, and the vines crisscrossed, forming a large net in an instant. Bullet grinned as he looked at the bodies strewn all over the floor and the monsters that kept coming out of the archway. This is a hardy battle. More than a year after being defeated by Dillon, his physical strength has once again climbed thanks to G5's super alloy mechanism. Dillon also specially made him a pair of gloves like Craig's. Let's start destroying. Hockey covered Bullet's body in an instant, and was then fused into his body by him. A strange blue-purple light glowed on the surface of his body. Swish. A lightning-like figure appeared beside Bullet. Ding. The thunderstorm unsheathed in an instant, resisting the slashing blows that came like a torrential rain. Looking at the bald head wearing a white robe and glasses, Shiryu licked his lips. 5 elders. They are really powerful. Ignorance. The bald 5 elders tilted the first generation in his hand, and Shiryu's arm began to tremble slightly. Where's Adams Dillon? Sending you to die. The moment first generation goosh pressed down, a ring appeared in the air, but before the ring opened, the body of the bald 5 elders had disappeared. The power of space. Huh. Camilla had a stern look on her face. Advertisement. This guy's perception and reaction are simply extraordinary. The bald 5 elders flashed back to the door of the Hall of Power and looked down at the crowd. Since he doesn't come, use your life to wash away your sins first. After speaking, he turned and walked towards the Hall of Power. Before the others moved, Bullet had already jumped up. The bald 5 elders walked towards the Hall of Power without turning around. Just as Bullet was stepping on the air and pounced on the bald 5 elders, a thin figure appeared in midair. Boom. The air wave exploded, and the surrounding flowers and green plants broke under the air wave, as if they had just experienced a violent storm. Enjoy it. The bald 5 elders disappeared into the halls of power. Bullet glanced at the ring-like mark on his fist, then looked up at the young boy who looked opposite. Spin. The moment their fists met just now, an almost irresistible force of rotation spread through his opponent's fist and spread throughout his body. If it wasn't for the fusion of armed colors to offset part of the strength, I'm afraid he was about to be recruited. The little boy standing across from Bullet was expressionless. Camilla and the others had no time to judge the strength characteristics of that little boy. Because dozens of auras comparable to that of that little boy had already risen around him. The first half of the Grand Line, water capital, Shenlong, is crossing the wind and waves at an extremely fast speed and approaching Mariajoy. Ace Bagu stood on the top floor of the tower and looked into the distance. Is it that big? In front of the water capital, a huge body emerged. San Juan Hungry Wolf, who was nearly 2,000 meters high, looked at the city of water opposite him with a puzzled look in his eyes. Is this, Pluton? Ace Bagu looked at the guy in front of him who was almost as tall as the upper part of the water capital, and he wasn't surprised. Once the Shenlong starts to move, it will definitely be noticed, and someone will definitely try to snatch it or intercept it. World government, redheads, Blackbeard. But Ace Bagu did not activate the weapons on the Shenlong, because it's just around the water capital. San Juan Hungry Wolf's mind didn't seem to be very bright. The captain asked him to stand by in the surrounding sea area to intercept all enemies that appeared. But he didn't expect that a city actually swam over from the sea. Before he could understand what was happening in front of him, the surrounding ocean currents suddenly began to spin crazily. Below the surface of the sea, Yokozuna opened his arms. The gigantic Uzumaki starts spinning around the San Juan Hungry Wolves. In the deep sea, he has no place to rely on. As Uzumaki grew, San Juan's body began to shake. There was a trace of anxiety in his blank eyes. Even if he is a fool, he knows that if he continues like this, he will die. Boom. San Juan Hungry raised his arm and slammed down toward the edge of Uzumaki. A huge wave rose into the sky, but it didn't slow down the speed of the eddy's rotation. Under massive traction, the San Juan Wolverines were engulfed in Uzumaki. Looking from the direction of the water capital, a waterspout with a diameter of hundreds of meters is connected to the sky. San Juan Hungry Wolf was pulled and rotated by the current like a top on the bottom of the sea, just when he was about to return to the surface of the sea. The waterspout connected to the sky fell instantly. A large patch of bright red bloodline floated on the surface of the surrounding sea. Yokozuna stepped on the waves and nodded towards Ace Bagu in the distance. Keep going. The capital of water has started again, and it is still 500 kilometers away from Mariajoy. Chapter 209 Marine's Justice. Simultaneously with the Battle of Mariajoy was the War of the Four Seas. East Blue completed the integration first. Because all the alliance countries have long been surrounded by the Peace Round Table. All members of the royal family have also been screened. Followed by South Blue, although Craig has left, but South Blue is still sweeping the quartet at lightning speed under the leadership of the Third Army. The main targets of their attack are those regimes and royal families known for their brutality. West Blue and North Blue disintegrated instantly under the impact of the Dongtata tribe, the Fur tribe, and the Balchico Islands. Numerous joint countries frantically tried to contact Mariajoy, but got no response. Some people think of Marine. They first ordered Marine to protect themselves, but they were all refused without exception. Then they started begging, they started bribing. Some Marines who were not firm enough to stand loose, but word spread quickly. The branch colonel who had trespassed in the palace was stripped of his command by his subordinates and expelled from the Marine. Hold your breath. Crane Vice Admiral sighed as he looked at Guion who was about to move. At this time, although Dylan didn't tell them the truth, he thought Dylan was right. Once Dylan and his men fail, Marine still needs to guard the world. Crane big sister. Guion clasped Kimpira's handle with his right hand, straightened his cloak, then turned to look at Crane Vice Admiral. Waiting is useless. Now that Sakazuki has made his choice, Marine must take a stand. If you think it's too risky, then I will fight as an individual. Playing. Are you going to Mariajoy? Guion shook his head. She slowly opened the door. The guys who escaped from Impel Down have already started to make trouble. Now, it's time to perform our duties. When little Dylan comes back, if what greets him is a devastated world, then Marine is a failure. Crane Vice Admiral looked at Guion in surprise, and then a smile appeared in her eyes. Go, do what you want to do. When Guion walked out of the fortress, Temporary Marshal, Black Arm, Zephyr was standing on a high platform, and under the high tower were many generals of the headquarters. Zephyr looked at the familiar faces and the fighting spirit on their faces. I don't have Mariajoy for my marshal position. Zephyr first joked that most of the generals and schools on the square were his students. Hearing Zephyr's words, they were stunned for a moment, and then burst into laughter. But Mr. Zephyr, your marshal is recognized by us. That's right. Give the order. Teacher Zephyr. Call the marshal. Idiot. Give order. Marshal Zephyr. Zephyr shook the mechanical arm of his right hand, and several figures walked out behind him. Naval Headquarters. Great Staff Advisor, Crane. Naval Headquarters. Great Inspector, Sengoku. Admiral of Headquarters, A Smile. Admiral of Headquarters, Pelusalino. They lined up behind Zephyr. Don't let those bastards fish in troubled waters. Give orders. Zephyr. Oh, Teacher Zephyr, I will still listen to your orders. Zephyr looked at Kizaru with his hands in his pockets and smiled angrily. Dylan didn't really like Kizaru, but he wasn't hostile either. He personally had some opinions on Kizaru. He was too self-centered, his position was unclear, and he relied too much on the power of fruit when fighting. Poor you be *******D, since you say so, then you go to the depths of New World first, and execute all those lingering fellows. Oh, it's really scary, Teacher Zephyr. As Pelusolino dissipated into a point of light, Zephyr took 2 steps forward. Advertisement. The huge broadcast screen instantly lit up, and news agencies and Marine branches all over the world stared at this scene. We joined Marine not to serve someone, nor to bow down to a certain force. We are full of passion and hope to bear the name of justice. Some people accuse me that we are the private weapons of the world government, and some people abuse us as lackeys under the feet of celestial dragons. But no one can deny Marine's sacrifice and contribution to world peace over the centuries. Nowadays, we will follow our will and fulfill our vocation. Protect those who were unguarded before. Defeat those who were unconquerable before. Marines. Boom. Marineford. Grand Line, 4 Cs. Marines all over the world stood up and beat their chests at the same time. Take up arms. Destroy the remaining pirates. Fight for justice. The whole world responded at the same time, breaking through the sky. Fight for justice. Naval headquarters, all senior generals set sail. Watching the warships swarming out, Zephyr looked west, in the direction of Greenbit. Smoker. G5, I leave it to you. In the G5 square, the Guileman brothers stood beside Smoker with Tashigi. You lead the 0108 combat unit to sail, and cooperate with the headquarters and other branches to cross advance. Catch those guys who come out. Yes. After the Guilemans and Tashigi left, Smoker looked at Zephyr on the screen in the arched hall. Relax, Teacher Zephyr. Zephyr stepped off the ledge and headed towards his warship. Are you going too? Doesn't Marineford need to be garrisoned? Little Crane. Zephyr turned to look at his old comrade. Marineford isn't here. Oh, Crane Vice Admiral had a faint smile on his face, not much of a surprise. Zephyr pointed to the position of his heart on his chest. It's here. Seeing Zephyr's disappearing figure, Crane Vice Admiral smiled slightly, remembering what Dylan said more than 2 years ago. Forts destroyed can be rebuilt, islands sunk can be relocated, justice lies, that is Marineford. She turned her head and glanced at the impatient, black threshold, Hina. Sail. Twin Gorges. Alex stood on the high platform with Beijing view, and looked into the distance. The Black Banner Army, behind him is already ready to go. Sail. After the fleet of the Black Banner Army set off, a girl wearing gloves appeared on the high platform. Behind her was a blue-haired girl about her age. Annie. Annie stood facing the wind, and she felt the breath in the strong wind. That is the call of the new era, and the sound of ideal. Vivi, you once asked me if the world could become like Girona, and now I will give you my answer. Annie turned and looked at her friend. The world is bound to be like that because we've spent half our lives fighting for it. The preparations are over. Tomorrow we'll start the story of I Am and Joey Boy, and then it will be the final chapter. Close black lens bracket chapter 210 in Trust. Their physical strength has begun to decline, it's up to you. Over Mariajoy. Dylan, who returned to the clouds, said to Tahir, make more noise. Tahir twirled his folding fan and stood up looking down. Clear. Dylan looked down at Mariajoy after Tahir left. You dead woman, don't take it off. Corpses piled up all over the floor at the entrance of the Hall of Power, and there were still a steady stream of monsters scrambling out of the opposite arch, rushing towards Camilla and the others one after another. You guys take a break. An ethereal voice appeared in everyone's ears, and then a lavender flame slowly emerged, turning into a figure in a snow-white gown. Tahir nodded towards them. Thanks for your hard work. Tahir, who had just appeared, immediately turned into the Tomamo before form, and the purple flame soaring into the sky instantly sealed the arch opposite the Hall of Power. Inside the Void Throne Hall, the direct celestial dragons turned their heads to look at 5 elders after seeing Tahir's form. I remember that the fruit of Tomamo was sealed. He used to be an important partner of Joey Boy. His divine fruit should be it is right to be imprisoned in the treasure house. What the hell did you guys do? The 5 elders, with birthmarks on their heads, ignored him. They also couldn't figure out why Sky Fox, Tahir could awaken to Mazame fruit so perfectly. Enough. The 5 elders interrupted the celestial dragons with a loud shout. You are not qualified to intervene. This is Lord Im's will. A look of disbelief appeared on the faces of celestial dragons. Looking at the flashing fluorescent lights in the hall, celestial dragons seemed to be trying to endure. Tahir slowly walked towards the door burning with purple flames. Camilla frowned. No problem. Tahir turned his head and smiled slightly, and then his body disappeared into the dark steps. In the depths of the corridor, countless monsters do not know whether they were attracted by the flames or driven by something. They rushed out of the ground frantically and defiantly. But when they got close to Tahir, they would all be incinerated by the purple flames surrounding Tahir. Standing in the promenade on the first floor, Tahir looked into the distance. Many stone walls on both sides of the promenade have been broken, and one dent after another appeared in the broken place. After looking at it twice, Tahir raised his foot and continued walking down. Looking at the corridor and above on the second floor, the aura of those monsters has dissipated. But below, Tahir pursed his lips and walked down towards the third floor. Hold head high. A bloody mouth opened wide, and Tahir's slender body looked so vulnerable in front of the mouth. But before the big mouth approached, a flame rose out of thin air, instantly burning the owner of the big mouth to ashes. A ferocious crocodile. More and more monsters broke free from the wall, and a ring of fire rose beside Tahir. He glanced at those monsters and then looked back at the downward circular steps. Since the movement is bigger, Tahir slowly closed his eyes. Those monsters who had lost their minds instinctively gave a meal. Boom. The purple fireworks, like the flames of hell, instantly started to burn from the ground. Thousands of square meters of underground space instantly began to disintegrate. Camilla and the others looked surprised at the ground that was beginning to collapse. Tahir, what is he doing? Boom. The soaring flames directly burned the first and second floors, and the purple fireworks rushed high into the sky. Some monsters on the third floor gasified in the flames before they could wake up. A huge pit appears in Mariajoy. In the Void Throne Hall, the direct celestial dragons could no longer keep calm looking at the scene in the picture. The third floor disappeared. That's it. It's their turn. Advertisement. No. The celestial dragons who had been reprimanding the five elders were just about to speak, when the hall of the Void Throne suddenly shone with more bewitching fluorescence than before. Countless vines protruded from incomprehensible angles, and then inserted into the bodies of the direct celestial dragons. I am you. Seeing this scene, five elders was also stunned. Do not. Not like this. It should be enough to select some people from the direct royal family to activate the fourth floor. They looked in the direction of the Void Throne in horror. It was empty. The five elders with the birthmark tremblingly asked in that direction, Master, I am the direct line of the royal family, if all sacrifices. There was a moment of silence behind the throne, and then a soft voice came out, go to. After everything is over, you still have time to reproduce. Your descendants will reform the 20 kings. Hearing this sentence, the bald five elders holding the first generation Goosh tightened his hands. But his right hand slackened again after he glanced at the vines around him. It's here. No one can stand against Lord I am. Yes. Backquote, 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 backquote. It has appeared. The breath of a monster. In the distance from Mariajoy, Parvati and the others looked solemnly at the purple pillar of fire rising into the sky. The power before Tamamo katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot. With the appearance of the huge crater, the earth began to roar. It was Balmond who felt uncomfortable first. After Camilla nodded to him, Balmond instantly disappeared into mist. Bullets and Shiryu's bodies also tensed up. A very strong sense of oppression, like looking up at the starry sky, but also like facing the abyss. Hold head high. A blood-colored dragon emerged from the ground first, and the soil around Mariajoy began to vibrate violently. As the bloody dragon flew high into the sky, with Mariajoy as the core, the surrounding land began to roll and collapse. As the ground tore apart, more and more monsters emerged from the ground. They have different shapes. There are sickle weasels as tall as hills. There are huge butterflies looming in the air. There are gnats that are hundreds of meters high with only half of their heads sticking out. Where is that person? I don't know. But without the power of lightning, he hasn't made a move yet. Hold on. Parvati looked at the monsters hovering in the distant sky and on the ground. Many of them are figures in memory. Outside the Hall of Power. The five elders stand in a row. Sakazuki lit a cigar with his finger. Swish. Dylan looked at the air around Sakazuki distorted by the high temperature and sighed. I leave it to you. Only you. A laughing voice emerged. Then there was a flash of lightning in the air. I'm going to do something else. Looking at Sakazuki and Kuzan who appeared behind Dylan, the five elders wearing hats said in a deep voice, today is the day to purge you. Marine is really not trustworthy. Dylan appeared in front of Camilla and the others. I'll leave the rest to you. Dylan twirled the ring on his finger. Go. Not yet. Adams Dylan. Sakazuki and Kuzan appear behind Dylan. Then, the real monster has awakened. So anxious. Not enough.